Hi son, it's Dad. As I write this, you've just turned 1 year old. You're swimming in new toys, your baby book's full of photos, and any day now you're going to start walking. I want to tell you about Death Stranding. Over a dozen hours into this game, we meet this man, a junk dealer living in an apocalyptic bunker, far from civilization. He's isolated, in mourning, heartbroken. This world has robbed him of the only thing that made life worth living. Long time gone, my girl, he says bitterly. Anyone who visits his bunker is first greeted with the vision of a young woman playing with an hourglass as a child's lullaby twinkles. We learn that contrary to the junk dealer's belief, she isn't actually dead. She's holed up in a shelter a few miles away. The junk dealer doesn't believe us. He refuses to welcome hope into his home, but he gives us an hourglass to deliver to her, just in case. When we deliver that hourglass, she steps out of her bunker. It's an intensely powerful moment for two reasons. The first is that in this game, we almost never see people in the flesh. The second is that she's so overwhelmed that she's crying. Tears are common in Death Stranding, but not because its characters are emotional. Instead, crying is an allergic reaction to strange particles in the air. This is a precious beat in our long journey. To reunite her with the junk dealer, we strap her to our back and carry her like a rucksack. A low-roar song plays as we march, a brooding, melancholic piece. The lyrics reference growing numb to depression, feeling empty. It sits in contrast to how silly the woman looks, wobbling around on our back as we stumble over rocks and cliffs. The visuals add levity to a bleak story. The junk dealer has spent years believing that his daughter died. We are about to bring a little hope back into a godless world.
I'm asking you to marry me, dummy.
Wait, they're getting married? I thought she was his daughter. Oh, now he's emailing me to moan about her and say he regrets the whole thing. After all the trouble to reunite you? And now the woman is leaving him? She goes back to her old shelter. Oh wait, but they're back together again. Was this a happy ending? What's happening? This is Death Stranding's feeling in a nutshell. It's a beautiful, bizarre piece of art that's sometimes clumsy and regularly very special. In 2019, Kojima Productions released the game to confused arched eyebrows, Game of the Year nominations, 6 out of 10s, and reviews calling it a masterpiece. It smashed into the games industry, leaving a polarizing crater in its wake because it's a game that is unabashedly, unrelentingly committed to itself. It's a philosophical text, a walking simulator, a blockbuster with a massive scope, and an intimate humanist story about the sacrifices we make for those who come after. It teaches us that even in our darkest hour, we don't give in to doom. We keep on keeping on, finding joy and connection wherever we can, whether that's in a surreal image of a woman dangling from our backpack, or the tiny grip of a baby. Son, I want to tell you about an explosion. I want to tell you about Death Stranding.
Once there was an explosion, a bang which gave birth to time and space.
Death Stranding categorizes mankind. Homo demons are the reckless ones. In the context of the game, they're bloodthirsty anarchists who kill without a second thought. Terrorists. Homo gestalt are those who belong to a collective. Homo loquens are those who seek knowledge, and Homo faber are craftspeople, those who use that knowledge to make. Homo religiosus are those who find purpose in faith, and Homo ludens are those who unite people and create culture through acts of play. They are the latest forms of life that came from that first explosion, the Big Bang. From protocells through to Homo habilis, erectus, Neanderthal, and finally, you, son. Hideo Kojima, Death Stranding's creative director, didn't invent these terms. Ludens, specifically, was coined by the historian Johann Huizinga. But he and his game studio embraced them wholeheartedly, emphasizing play as a heroic trait. Us, the people who play Death Stranding, save the day by engaging with the game, by connecting to each other through its systems and rules. Sam Porter Bridges, our main character, is categorized as Homo Ludens by the scientist Hartman. The game's general focus on play might be what makes its opening feel so out of place tonally. Death Stranding is a system's first experience. You spend hours in menus, building, crafting, upgrading, connecting, chewing on the rules set out by the developers. But none of that is in its first couple of hours. Instead, the opening 2 chapters are a mood piece. They're less interested in getting you into the mechanics of Death Stranding and more about wrenching you into the feeling.
Tears. A chiral allergy. So,
You have dooms, like me.
I've got the extinction factor, but I think you got me beat.
We're thrown headfirst into the world, swatted with a Kobo Abe quote. A barren landscape. The rain, commonly known as timefall, makes birds age rapidly and die. Invisible monsters try to kill us. Suddenly there's a woman with an umbrella. Oh, the woman teleports, I guess. Are we in danger? I think we're in danger. But the woman's back. Why do the invisible monsters drip tar? They seem to be blind. Interesting. Why do the monsters make us cry? Because of a chiral allergy. What's a chiral allergy? What are dooms? Why is the lady eating flying grubs? Why is that baby in a pod? Why are we naked on a beach? And what, for the love of all that is holy, is a Death Stranding? At the edge of America, Sam Porter Bridges shelters from that timefall in a cave. He's a porter, carrying packages from apocalyptic shelter to apocalyptic shelter. The woman with the umbrella, Fragile, introduces herself. She knows him, recognizes his name, calls him the man who delivers. The way Death Stranding onboards you is fascinating. It's fitful, frenetic. We are thrown so deep into the deep end and expected to find our way through new ideas, concepts, and names, all while the game over-explains basic mechanics and repeats simple, easy-to-understand information. By the time you reach episode 3, characters keep talking about the beach, like we're intimately familiar with it. Son, I can tell you now, right at the start of this video, that the beach is a strange dimension where your soul goes after you die. A transitionary phase before you move on to the afterlife. The titular Death Stranding is where the beach started to bleed into our physical world, causing a chunk of supernatural phenomena like timefall to happen. But you don't know any of that when characters start to hypothesize that it's a means of time travel and get in the grit of how data passes through it. You've glimpsed it, passively, in a couple of dreamy cutscenes, but that's it, so you're armed with questions. What is the beach? Is it purgatory? A plane of reality that was always there but just out of reach? A mind palace? We're expected to see the forest while someone calls us up to explain the leaves on the trees. But through the intangibility of our opening comes a thrumming beat. Don't Be So Serious by Low Roar plays twice in the space of a few minutes. The somber soundtrack to our tutorial. Mood, atmosphere, and artistry take precedent over onboarding. Could Kojima Productions have achieved a solid mood while simplifying its opening? Probably, but by throwing us into a slow, weighty first hour, we soak into how the world breathes. As the game continues, we'll have emails and interview transcripts dumped on us regularly, over-explaining small details that add up to give the world shape. The apocalypse has come, but why? What exactly does that mean? What does it look like on a granular scale? We are asked to treat America like a scientist, collecting dozens of theories and hunches and perspectives, forcing us to draw our own conclusions about what all of these facts and figures mean for the wider world. Timefall, for example, is a mystery. Why does it age stuff so rapidly? Why does it turn to normal water once it makes contact with something? The answer lies in chiralium, a brand new element that bled into our world when the Death Stranding happened. We can harness it for electricity and make chiral grams, a 3D hologram that works in real time. Learn about your sci-fi periodic table if you want to understand how age rain works. Or take Fragile's umbrella. It turns out, it isn't really an umbrella. It's a navigational device that lets her teleport by using the beach. That revelation dominoes into learning more about dooms, flawed superpowers that have mysteriously started affecting certain humans. You can teleport, but now you cry because you're allergic to the chiralium that lingers in the air. The tears enhance how bleak Death Stranding's America is. Even the superpowers are depressing. But learning more about dooms means learning about star signs. For some reason, people born under signs like Cancer or Pisces have stronger dooms abilities. In our efforts to research the world, we've got to wade through a sea of unreliable narrators in our characters. Everyone is lying to you in some way, even if it's not on purpose. Others are barking up the wrong tree and keep telling you information that is eventually retconned. And then retconned again, and then retconned a final time. The Death Stranding scattered humanity to the wind, so the sharing of information is spotty at best. And that makes a game a dense text chew on because you are forced to fill in thematic gaps. Take the homo categorization I opened with. It's incomplete, not a comprehensive list. Some characters don't fit neatly into the examples given to us by the game. We'll soon meet a character called Die Hardman. Where does he sit? Homo princeps, those who lead? Because the game feels like an in-progress research paper, because our characters don't have all the answers, we pull together rules of the world from their theories. Many people find this frustrating and convoluted, and it absolutely can be, but if you treat Death Stranding like a thesis, it becomes part of the game. The barrage of strange terminology becomes a mystery. Our goal isn't to see the credits roll, it's to crack the code of Death Stranding. Our next stop offers up the perfect example.
This route's crawling with BTs. Sure you can't use another?
I wish I could, but there's no time.
Then just burn the poor bastard right here.
You put all that chiralium in the air so close to town? Can't do it.
Sam's journey to Central Knot City doesn't take long, but he's pulled into another job before he can rest. Priority 1. A corpse disposal worker called Igor needs his help to transport a dead body to the incinerator. It's all here to continue the world's soak. Igor's got to dump the setup on Sam while staying light on details. One day, the Death Stranding happened. We don't know why, but now when a person dies, their soul tries to reconnect with their physical body. If that happens, it causes a mass explosion known as a void out. People panicked, humanity got decimated, and now everyone lives in underground bunkers while America is haunted by ghosts called BTs. The only way to know where those ghosts are is by using the thing strapped to Igor's chest, an orange pod with a baby inside. A bridge baby, BB-28. Bridge babies give new meaning to the word retcon, and that's a bridge we're going to cross later because what matters here is whether the retcons and lore as theory impacts the storytelling. The answer will depend on what a person thinks of Hideo Kojima. Josh Beiser wrote on GameDeveloper.com, "There is a term critics use to describe Hideo Kojima's style. Kojimisms, for when something weird or potentially controversial is in his games. Death Stranding is peak Kojimisms. When it comes to his writing and direction, Kojima is a very personal and indulgent creator. He layers scenes with meaning and symbolism, even if that symbolism is openly explained by the text. The word auteur is debated a lot in the game space because lots of creative people and specialties come together to form a cohesive whole. It's not all down to one person. Regularly, we talk about how a game is bigger than just one person. Alan Wake 2 is bigger than Sam Lake. BioShock is bigger than Ken Levine. And Death Stranding is bigger than Hideo Kojima. Just look at the art book for obvious examples. Yoji Shinkawa is responsible for the gorgeous character designs that have accompanied all of the games that Kojima's worked on. He has a very personal, gritty, and recognizable style. Would we say that we shouldn't praise his designs just because other people gave him guidance, a creative brief, oversight on who the people he's drawing are? Of course not, and the same goes for Kojima as a creative director. He was the lead writer on Death Stranding, produced Death Stranding, cast Death Stranding. He was the cinematographer, the game director, the guy who picked what licensed music belongs in the game and oversaw the marketing strategy, right down to editing trailers himself. Just like when he led Metal Gear Solid, Kenji Yano and Shuyo Murata helped with the game's writing. They fleshed out the structure of scenes or added a binder's worth of supplemental information to make the world soakable. But their contributions don't mean that the Kojimisms belong to them. On his podcast Brain Structure, Kojima said that he feels emotionally responsible for everything that doesn't work just because he's the figurehead. The central conceit of connecting with other people despite never seeing them is something that indirectly calls back to how he was treated during the development of Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. He was locked in a room, separated from the team, and had to direct the last days of the game without seeing his colleagues. The auteur debate in games is as silly as the auteur debate in film. We talk about a new Hideo Kojima game the same way we talk about a new Christopher Nolan movie. The reality is that projects of this scale are a collaborative effort, but without a clear vision and clear leadership, the masterpieces we cling to wouldn't be masterpieces. Just look at Metal Gear Survive, a game made without Kojima and led by game executives. Yota Tsutsumizaki directed that game, but even a cursory glance at the behind the scenes shows he wasn't really allowed to direct anything. And what we got had all the artistry of a jobby on a plinth. So long as we don't forget that there is a team surrounding that director who did a lot of the hard graft, it's absolutely fine to look at a text with its leading creative force in mind. You can't separate Death Stranding from Hideo Kojima. The Kojimisms won't let you. No matter what game we're talking about, his style comes back to agonizingly contextualizing a lot. Right now, Igor has a robotic arm called an Odradek attached to his shoulder. It scans the world, showing dangerous rivers, steep climbs, and packages that we can pick up. It's detective vision, but for walking. It doesn't need to be explained beyond that, but the game really wants to highlight that these packages only show up because every package has an electronic tag attached to it. It also really wants to tell us that the word Odradek comes from the writer Franz Kafka. The over-explaining is a Kojimism that's always been there, whether in Police Knots, Metal Gear, or now Death Stranding. Soon, we will learn that the President of the United States is Sam's mother. 5 seconds after we learn that, he enters the Oval Office and Die Hardman whispers in his ear, "It's your mother, Bridget." I get it. That's not the case everywhere though. Fascinatingly, the Death Stranding as an event isn't given a specific date. When did the first void out happen? One of the preppers we visit calls out that he never saw the real America himself, but Igor and his brother do remember it. The date the Death Stranding began is a basic fact that would help ground us in the world, but the game never gives us a date or textual chronology despite how much it likes to over-explain things. You are forced to piece it together yourself. You can make Sam shout, "Hello!" or "Anybody home?" while traveling. If another player's structure is nearby, a second invisible Sam will shout back. The game throws around the term multiverse like that explains everything, but we never see other Sams bleeding into our reality, so what on earth does that mean? What's text? What's subtext? What's just a bit of gameplay fun? The answer is yes. Pivotal emotional story beats get interrupted by a results screen rating our progress. Though that's not necessarily a Kojimism, it's not an issue unique to Death Stranding. Results screen pacing resets have plagued plenty of game stories. We are lathered with things disconnected from Death Stranding's game world. In the original release, Monster Energy acted as Sam's drink of choice to boost his stamina. We'd get longing, romantic shots of the cans as he downed them. When Sam does a stinky poo, we get an advertisement for Ride, a TV show where Norman Reedus, Sam's actor, talks about motorcycles. Later, when we drive a trike based off the show, Sam mutters, "This is so cool, I feel like I'm on Ride with Norman Reedus right now." That's a Kojimism I find endearing. It's a favour to the main actor of the game, and is at least thematically relevant because in the show, Norman Reedus is travelling across America. Memory chips are our in-game collectibles. Finding each one tells us about a film, album, vehicle, or just an item that Hideo Kojima likes. They're inconsequential and silly, Kojimisms that let him recommend movies he likes, but they're also small, delicate pieces of history that, in universe, the Death Stranding washed away. Reminders of the world before sit in our menu. Years from now, you might play Death Stranding, hate it, and watch this video wondering if I can convince you that it's great. If that's the case, hello, how are things in 2040? Did we visit Rome? I hope so. But it's also the case that if you don't like this game, if you think the Kojimisms are too much, I am not going to convince you otherwise. I just like them. I think they add levity to a dark world, and that's especially true when it comes to his characters. In 2023, the satirical magazine Hard Drive led a jokey article with the title, "Hideo Kojima and wife debate naming son either Michael or Fragile Baby Man." There isn't a better way to sum up Kojima's nomenclature. Big Boss, Vamp the Vampire, Revolver Ocelot, they're silly and iconic and on the nose. Death Stranding is no exception. This is a world where a man with a broken heart is called Hartman, where a man who's famously escaped death is called Die Hardman, where Sam Porter Bridges is a porter who's forming bridges between people, and where his sister Amelie is, well, we're going to talk about Amelie later. The names are hardly ever explained. Why did these people choose these titles? For Deadman, it's just something people call him, so he embraced it. Same goes for Die Hardman. That's not his real name, do you know what is? John McClane, you know, from the famous Christmas movie Die Hard. In other cases, we can blame nominative determinism. Fragile was born with her name, and now her body is fragile because it was exposed to timefall. She's even turned it into a catchphrase. "I'm fragile," she often says, "but I'm not that fragile." Kojima's character writing typically is focused on the past. It's why his exposition-heavy style has turned into a joke. The structure of Death Stranding is simple. Sam meets a character with a silly name, and then they lay out how they got that name. Origin stories aren't character arcs, but with origin stories this interesting, does that really matter? Our cast serve as parables to back up Death Stranding's philosophy. Be honest, would the tragedies that we learn about be more powerful if Fragile was called Francois, if Hartman was called Dave? No, of course not. These are memorable titles, statements on who these people are, wrapped up in one word. And some of them do go on journeys. Deadman transforms from a government zealot to a man full of doubt. Lochner and Malignian's relationship is fractured, but Sam helps it heal. Sam himself changes from a man who shuts himself off from the world to learning about the value of connection in many of its forms. He carries lots of titles by the end: Strand, Porter Bridges, Unger, the man who delivers. He suffers from aphenphosmphobia, an irrational fear of being touched that means he ignores handshakes and is most comfortable when speaking over comms. It's a central thematic beat that ties him to the game's grander message, and something for him to eventually overcome. He's covered in handprints. The world has marked him. People have marked him.
Norman Reedus and the way he's used in Death Stranding 1 and 2, I can never get over the fact that that's just Norman Reedus. Like, I'm looking at Daryl from The Walking Dead, that's just Norman Reedus being Norman Reedus.
There's a fair criticism to be made that he's a bit of a nothing character, unmemorable compared to Kojima's other heroes because he speaks so little, and the recognizable casting of Norman Reedus makes it hard to separate the actor from the character. To strengthen that relationship, a diary or journal would help us gain some insight, and I do think that that's a missed opportunity. By episode 3, we know precisely 3 things about him. He hates bridges, he doesn't like to be touched, and he likes Amelie. But despite all of that, it doesn't stop me from feeling connected to him, his journey, or his feelings. He's a man of few words in a world where nobody shuts the heck up. That makes him stand out from the rest of the cast. He stays at arm's length until the closing act, where the game cracks him open and shows a gooey center. In the face of Death Stranding's horror though, he says very little, letting the visuals speak for themselves.
The engine's stalled.
Those assholes got us right where they want us. Get us out of here.
Sam and Igor don't make it to the incinerator in time. The corpse necrotizes, black tar bleeds from it, the separation of body and soul. The timefall comes, monsters crash out of the gloom, and Igor panics because BB-28 doesn't seem to be working, it's faulty. If Death Stranding's opening is a mood piece, it turns grim quickly. Igor is forced to shoot his colleague, and as he's picked up by shimmering black tendrils, he stabs himself repeatedly, trying to minimize the inevitable void out that comes when the dead connect with the living. The void out comes anyway. We open and close with an explosion.
Here's my advice to my 7-year-old son. You're going to fail. And by that I mean that everybody fails. That the path to getting good at something is paved with all the times that you sucked at that thing. Embrace failure. It's how we get better at things.
I see. Aphenphosmphobia. No wonder you were out there alone, where no one could touch you. I'll try to be more careful, Sam.
Sam wakes to some bad news. The void out obliterated central Knot City. Thousands of people are gone, and all that's left is a crater. Notably, he asks if BB-28 is okay. He's a man of few words, but he's still concerned about the kid. Deadman breaks the news to us, our cheery confidant and guide. A man with a Frankensteinian scar stitched across his forehead. He was born into an artificial womb. Many of his organs come from anonymous donors. He's fascinated by the beach because sadly, his artificial birth means he probably doesn't have one. See, everyone has their own beach that they eventually travel to when they die. Most of them look the same, a stretch of ocean, a grayscale color palette. Deadman is certain that his circumstances make him detached from the land of the dead. He sees the humor in it, the irony, and clings to Sam as a way of eventually learning more about a place he'll never reach. How did Sam survive the void out? Why isn't he on the beach right now? The answer lies in Doom's. His superpower is his soul returns to his body if he dies. Deadman calls him a repatriate. But here's a question for you. What does that mean for Death Stranding's horror? What does that mean for tension? In 2021, the game got a 2-part novelization, written by Hitori Nojima. In it, Sam chides himself for being scared of BTs. He calls himself conceited. How could someone who can't die possibly know the fear that BTs bring, he thinks. We also learn a really interesting detail that reframes Sam's abilities as a repatriate. If his body gets destroyed, he won't be able to come back. He'd wander the seam forever, a transitionary location between the beach and the physical world. How does that work in the context of void outs? Your guess is as good as mine. You'd think being caught in a massive explosion would destroy his body. I love that detail though, and it's frustrating that it's missing from the game because it adds a narrative stake to getting killed. It makes the horror of death even more tangible. Sam won't just die, there's a chance he could wander the spiritual realm for all eternity, slowly going mad. Instead, we feel that tension through gameplay. If Sam is killed by a BT, it triggers a void out. A part of the world is decimated, leaving a wide, untouchable crater in the middle of the landscape. A giant golden handprint sits ominously in its center, a permanent reminder of our failure and a sign that we're one step away from a game over. Sam is able to repatriate afterwards, but your cargo gets trashed, and if a BT eats you again in the same location, you're sent back to a previous save. Nobody wants to pockmark the world with craters, and the fact monster encounters are built around this last chance system means failure has weight. Deadman will eventually point out that some scientists theorize that because fear and pleasure come from the same region of the brain, one can be converted into another. Fear as pleasure. He theorizes that it's a useful mutation, a way to adapt because the world is now harrowing and suffocating, full of apocalyptic monsters. I haven't been able to find any papers that talk about that, but this region that Deadman talks about, the amygdala, is also responsible for other brain functions. Emotions that relate to parenting and caregiving for a start, which might explain why being a dad feels like a balancing act between neuroticism and unconditional love. It also connects to social communication and understanding, interpreting someone's intentions from how they communicate. Recognizing patterns that tell us we ought to be scared. Those patterns are etched into the cinematography, the brooding atmosphere, and the shrieking cosmic entities that charge through it. Death Stranding certainly has the tone of horror, the slow pace of minute-to-minute gameplay, the dismal, depressing circumstances of Igor's death. The opening sequence with BTs in the cave show a deep understanding of what makes our skin crawl. Fear of the unknown is primal. It dates back to before Homo sapiens could talk, so the mysteries of Death Stranding lend nicely to how it characterizes its monsters. Hideo Kojima has always wanted to make a horror game, with 2014's PT showing us what could have been achieved if he was allowed to follow through with the team. We see sprinkles of that here, but it also subverts those patterns. Before he died, Igor looked up into the night sky and gasped in horror. "Son of a bitch," he muttered. A rainbow! The idea of a terrifying rainbow walks the line between baffling and barmy, but it somehow fits. The imagery isn't what's terrifying, it's the strangeness. A rainbow shouldn't be scary. Why was Igor scared? Our answer comes when we see what the rainbow heralds, and how they later go on to be beautiful, expansive rewards for reaching the top of a mountain. Kojima told Glixel, "I don't have a dark mindset in particular. Death Stranding is not a horror game. I just wanted to make something that looks very unique, something you haven't seen before, something with a more artistic slant to it. I'm not pursuing a dark aspect to the game. It might not have been designed as a horror game, but its world can still be horrifying. Death Stranding is an incredibly optimistic story, and its optimism is made powerful because it's set in a dark, macabre world full of bone-chilling moments. It isn't interested in the disgusting the same way PT was. There's no fetus in the sink here. We don't find bodies ripped apart. In fact, it's surprisingly gore-free, all things considered. Wounds sparkle, with imagery capitalizing on the chiralium concept to make blood look like glitter. A rotting corpse forms a shining golden mask over it to herald doom. Body fluids are a boon, something to welcome, not a hindrance. But just because the disgusting is absent doesn't mean that queasy discomfort that comes from good horror is. The game's greatest strength is its surrealism and what its imagery suggests about the reality of its apocalypse. Our next stop is coated in that surrealism.
Sam, if we don't all come together again, humanity will not survive.
We don't need a country. Not anymore.
Sam's mother, President Bridget Strand, is dying. Cancer. Sam hasn't seen her in 10 years, but she's asked to see him personally. Bakshi, along with director Die Hardman, hidden behind a black mask skull, is hoping Sam will join Bridges for one big mission. His sister Amelie has spent 3 years crossing the country, laying the foundation for something called the Chiral Network, super internet that uses the beach to pass data. It would reconnect the disparate shelters across America, reconstructing a society from what the Death Stranding left behind. Bridget wants Sam to follow his sister. It's emotional manipulation set up by Bridges to rope Sam into their reconstructionist quest. When he was sleeping, they locked a bracelet onto his wrist that will monitor his health, let headquarters track his location, and communicate. It's a smartwatch designed to look like a pair of handcuffs. Bridges thinks the cuffs are a symbol of the bonds that link people, but Sam calls it as he sees it. America's dead. Bridget's the president of jack shit. Connecting people to the Chiral Network won't stop the monsters or the timefall. The game goes to great lengths to reinforce how cold and clinical the cufflinks are in their design. If we zoom in, we can see that they've rubbed Sam's wrist until it's red and raw. Bridget's death is brutal. She dies in Sam's arms, surrounded by black wires and cables. She throws herself at him to try and convince him of the mission, and his aphantphobia forces him to pull back. She crawls on the ground like a deformed, mewling beast, mysteriously bleeding black tar. With her last gasp, she puts the fate of humanity on his shoulders. It's not a peaceful death. It'll haunt Sam for the rest of the game. He's plagued with nightmares, often appearing without announcement because they're randomized. If you look in the mirror, Igor and the corpse disposal driver will appear, smiling, the happiness in their faces contrasting the reality of their final moments. BB might smash her head into her pod, trying to break out. My favorite is the silhouetted figure that stands in a shower, head limp. A distinct reference to Lisa from PT, but what makes this really unnerving is Sam can ignore it if we want. She never goes away, but every action we take has her hovering in the background, waiting for us to approach. Timefall is an enemy to everyone, so aging is where the grotesque lies. When the driver is pinned under the truck at the start, we watch his features corrode in real time as his essence is liquefied. The crabs that populate the beach have human faces carved into their shells. Every time Sam dies, the camera zooms down his gullet, showing a baby squashed into his throat. Because the baby is playful, sometimes flashing its bum and sometimes popping its thumb, that horrifying image becomes complex, something that adds to the surrealism. By the halfway mark, where the baby imagery becomes expected and commonplace, the game changes tact with symbolic barbed wire spiderwebs and damaged baby dolls. Sharp nails stick out of its head, one of its eyes sits lazily, an image that unnerves everyone. A damaged infant. Sam doesn't believe in the Bridges project, but he knows his mother's body needs to be incinerated. It's a tough ask, but Die Hardman and Deadman say it has to be him who carries her corpse. If he doesn't do it, someone less capable will. People might die. The BTs might get them. BT stands for Beached Thing, their souls stranded in the world of the living, desperately trying to find their bodies. If they succeed, they don't come back to life. Instead, the body is consumed and America gets rocked by a big old explosion. That is why we have to incinerate the corpses. The issue, though, is that BTs are mindless. They won't just hunt for their body, they'll hunt for anyone. They are neutral in their hauntings, but very deadly. At least in Act 1. A prepper will later theorize that the BTs are terrifying because we don't know exactly what they look like. The fear of the unknown is a powerful thing. Sam could always sense them, but it isn't until he connects to the BB pod that we can see them, and even then, it's just a shape that conjures an idea of them. Here at the incinerator, as Bridget's body is burned away, Deadman orders Sam to also incinerate the BB unit. It's broken, he says. They're only designed to last about a year. This is a world that treats children like tools, churns through them. Sam refuses for two reasons. The first comes from the novelization. He empathizes with the BB beyond the simple fact that not hurting a baby feels like a categorical imperative. Bridges has treated them both like tools from the start, binding them both to this dream of a new America without really asking. The second reason is more practical. BTs have swarmed around the incinerator. If he's going to escape, he needs to know where they are. The issue there is that BBs and people with dooms are typically a dangerous combination. The senses get amplified, you feel the stress of a child, and children feel fear more acutely than adults. The feedback could send you into a mania. Plugging into a BB unit should be a really risky thing for Sam to do, but mysteriously that's not the case. There seems to be something special about their relationship, destined to find each other. BTs are relegated to zones. They don't wander the earth freely. That means you can sometimes work around them, ignore them altogether at the cost of more difficult traversal. Typically, however, because this is a video game, a beached thing's favourite place is the route we would rather take. When they arrive, you need to move slowly, quietly, and hold Sam's breath, something that kills his stamina. However, they're always accompanied by timefall, something that mechanically makes you want to move quickly because it can destroy your equipment. It's a catch-22 that you are forced to contend with. You can only see them if you stop moving and scan with your Audra deck, so the pace of these encounters is slow, tense, and achingly long. Wide handprints burst through the ground as they search, surrealism returning once again because the size, the ferocity of those hands don't feel like they should be connected to the humanoid hanging figures that float in the air. Eventually, Sam's cufflinks will get an upgrade, meaning he can stealth kill BTs by severing the spiritual umbilical cords that tie them to our physical realm. Just like how an upside-down rainbow brings beauty and danger, there's a bizarre comfort to this. We're not erasing these souls, we're freeing them, sending them on to the other side. They even give us a little thumbs up as they do, like they're thanking us. Unfortunately, Death Stranding is simply too big a game to contain them, and it isn't long before their tension leaks away, becoming a nuisance rather than a threat. By the end of the game, there are numerous ways to handle them. X0 grenades come from Sam's shower water. Tossing one makes the ghosts flee for a short period so Sam can sneak by them. X1 grenades are his pee. They make BTs flee as well, but they also mask an area that stops them coming back. X2 grenades are from poop. They draw BTs into a clump, something that's especially useful for our third weapon, hematic grenades. These are grenades harvested from Sam's blood. The cufflink does a quick blood transfusion whenever we toss these, meaning Sam takes damage if he doesn't have a blood bag equipped. Blood grenades are the only ones that get explained, something that adds mystery to our first few battles. We don't know what a pea grenade does, is it even going to be useful? But once you crack the code, BTs become a breeze if you're prepared. Eventually, you can use a bola gun because the ropes it fires are woven with Sam's blood, or assault rifles and shotguns and grenade launchers and freaking rocket launchers, all of which kick BT butt faster and faster. Suddenly, BTs aren't a terrifying force dreamed up by a madman. They're tar puddles. Now, what's important is Death Stranding wants you to feel that way. We are conquering the landscape. We are bringing life and humanity back to a world that doesn't want it. When the end comes, reconnecting America isn't triumphant, it's melancholic, but one of the big wins for our cast is how they suddenly find themselves in a world where BTs can be destroyed. It's a shame though that in conquering them, BTs stop being interesting long before we get there. Instead, they start to feel like they're minor inconveniences that get in the way of the good stuff. They bog us down if we're driving. Vehicles get automatically sucked into the earth if we drive into a BT zone, something that becomes infuriating later when you're trying to build stuff or make massive deliveries because it interrupts that meditative flow. At one point, Sam is separated from BB-28, so that tension does return, albeit temporarily. But it's all too little too late, and the scare factor has already been wiped away for the horror to return in full. They're effective when they're mysterious and tense, but with each one killed, they become mundane. That's primarily because there isn't much variety. It feels strange to call BTs enemy types, but that is effectively what they are, and outside of boss fights they come in just 3 forms. Gazers, the humanoid types, jellyfish, floating sacks that hang in the air with long waving tendrils, and hunters, beings that try to drag Sam into the tar. Gazers have variants, red types, white types, ghosts that are strangely unaffected by certain weapons. I appreciate that they're here because they bring the tension back if you don't have the necessary tools, but they're incredibly rare. Jellyfish are bizarre and unexplained. We don't need our Audra deck to see them, anyone can. When they die, they drop cargo. They sit to the north, but the only time we have to deal with them is in a late game chapter that kicks off the home stretch of the story. Hunters are a transitionary enemy. They only appear if a gazer spots us, bursting out of the ground, needing to be shook off. That's easy, unless you're low in stamina. A tired Sam is a screwed Sam, and they'll drag him through the tar to face their master, a catcher BT. Reading the art book, an interesting sentence jumped out. Quote, We had early BT concepts that went unused as they were judged to lean too much towards a gamish feel and lack artistic weight. Catchers come in a few forms, always returning to oceanic imagery, even if it's just in the detail. Whales and squids glob up from the tar, twisting and changing shape as they thrash around. The feline type looks like a lion and bounds on 4 legs, but its mouth is like a sea anemone. I find it strange that Kojima Productions were so determined to avoid a gamish feel because the BT boss fights do pull from game staples. The gold sheen on their skin is a weak point. There are obvious attack patterns. The battles aren't really a challenge, but the environment is. A part of the open world is effectively transformed into a boss arena. The earth melts away into tar, slowing us down. Vantage points rise out of the sea, buildings swallowed up by void outs, blasting out of the past and into the present. An antimatter core sits at the center of these creatures, and if they devour Sam, it connects with his matter, and the result is a crater. Other players come to our rescue if you run out of grenades or blood bags, tossing them into the middle of a battle, so there's a mad scramble to get what we need as the catcher bounds around the battlefield. If you're unlucky though, and no one chucks you ammo, you can race to the edge of the combat zone, and the catcher will eventually leave. You're not stuck in a fail state. The challenge is trudging half a mile before it grabs you.
Don't worry. It's okay. I'll always be with you.
Returning to headquarters, Sam is reminded again that BB-28 is marked by bridges for disposal. It's just a tool, Deadman says. You can't get attached. But Sam pushes back. There's something special about this kid. When he connects to the pod, he has strange visions of a man talking to it. It's worth investigating, and even if it isn't, everyone in Capital Knot City owes her their life. A child was the only thing that stood between them, a void out, and the monsters.
Tip number 30. Treat every roll of toilet paper like it's your last.
When you started walking, you didn't want any help. You pulled yourself up onto the couch and slowly slid along it, bumping your face into the fabric. With images of dads holding their kids' hands as they take big awkward steps, I held out my fingers and pulled you over so we could practice together. You didn't like that. You flopped to the floor and yelled at me like I'd spoiled the fun, and I was confused. You're pulling yourself up on stuff. Aren't we supposed to be trying to walk now? No. It turns out there's a transitionary phase between crawling and walking called cruising. You were growing more independent, sliding around furniture and using it to balance. I wasn't supposed to help you yet. What you were doing was all part of the plan. Son, Death Stranding is full of friction, some of which is all part of the plan and amazing and chewy, and some of which is wholly unnecessary. Walking, the main thing you'll be doing in the game, falls into the first camp. Speaking to Vulture, Hideo Kojima said, quote, I wanted to start very slowly, so that the world looks beautiful, but you kind of feel odd. There's something broken here. I wanted the player to become Sam, but gradually, he doesn't know how to control himself at the beginning. You do it until you get it right, like a baby learning to walk. If you really want to be a baby learning to walk, you can play 2025's Baby Steps, a game where you climb a mountain without the tools, toys, and most importantly, cargo that Sam has. There, the main character, Nate, is such a hopeless loser that you need to do everything for him. You need to move each leg independently. Compared to Baby Steps, Death Stranding is a gosh darn empowerment fantasy. Here, walking is where you find the fun. But let's check back in with the story and see where we're walking to.
My mother may be gone, but I'm here. And you, Sam? You're here too.
The plot thickens. Sam's sister Amelie calls in via chiralgram to tell us that her entire team have been killed by a terrorist faction called Homo Demons. She made it to Edge Knot City, completed her task, but now she needs us to come and rescue her and use a device called a Cupid to connect the infrastructure that she and her team set up. The plan is to set up the chiral network to form the UCA, the United Cities of America. Sam isn't interested in any of that. As far as he's concerned, Bridges is no better than the demons, just another kind of cult. Covering the world in cable didn't bring an end to war and suffering before, did it? All Bridges wants to do is shackle what's left of the country to their ideal of America. But then there's Amelie, the person he loves most in the world, the sister who kept him sane as the country lost its mind. It's been 10 years since he's seen her and she hasn't aged a day. Apparently, that's because her body is on the beach, a mystery to add to our list of mysteries. With a grumble and a groan, he agrees to journey west. Not for Bridges, but for her. It's a mission for a dead president trying to resurrect the ghost of a country. So, bud, let's get walking. Even though the incinerator was our first official mission, we were still missing almost everything that makes walking so captivating there. BB-28 didn't get hooked up until we arrived. Bridges didn't let us access their terminals to grab useful tools because they're stinky poo-poo heads. We couldn't even pick up resources like chiralium as we go. We needed to rely on the kindness of strangers, or in this case, just one stranger. Our now dead friend, Igor. He left ladders and ropes for us to use. That limited us so we can focus on how the terrain works, on how walking works, something that was trickier with a body than cargo because Bridget was so heavy. The game wanted us to consider the implications of what we're doing and what we've learned so far. Amelie's mission feels very different. This is a longer journey with more difficult terrain and plenty of mail to deliver. You press forward on the stick and Sam doesn't just go, he trudges. At first, it feels wrong. You're used to video game walking being automatic, like the character is on invisible train tracks. Push forward, reach destination, job done. But in Death Stranding, movement is something that you manage. Walking is a conversation constantly interrupted by your cargo. Sam has a center of gravity. With a heavy cargo load, that center will shift depending on where his feet go. If you're careless, he'll topple over. The triggers become his hands. Hold them down and he tightens the straps and braces himself. Let go, and he loosens up again. It lets him move faster, but at the cost of control. Every rock suddenly matters. Every little dip, every awkward bump. At the top of a hill, you can use that weight to speed him up, shifting from left to right so it carries him desperately forwards and down. But if you bomb it and hit one stupid pebble at the wrong angle, Sam's ankle rolls and he starts to skid. You know that horrible half second in real life where you realize you might fall over but gravity hasn't decided yet? Death Stranding understands that feeling. It turns it into a mechanic. You slam the triggers to grip tighter, you lean the stick into the fall. Sometimes you scrape through it, heart in your mouth. Sometimes you don't. Cargo flies, Sam screams, BB cries, and you sit there staring at the screen thinking, that was my fault. I felt that going wrong and I didn't fix it. And that is the magic. When you were cruising along the sofa, you weren't just moving, you were constantly doing micro calculations that your tiny brain had no words for. How far can I lean before I fall? How much weight can my leg take if I push? What happens if I let go of this thing and reach for that thing? Why is Dad wiggling his hands at me? I'm fine, I've got this, yo. Death Stranding is that process, but gamified. The best bits are just you, a bag full of parcels, and a bad idea of a shortcut. Stacked on top of a 2-mile walk are dozens of invisible systems. Slope angle, surface type, how wet the ground is, how much weight you're carrying, how fast you're going. Heck, if you're carrying enough chiral crystals, your cargo weight gets reduced. All of it pours into those little wobbles in Sam's posture. What makes it work is that the game gives walking its own dramatic curve. At the start of a journey, you're fresh. Your boots are fine, your back isn't groaning under too much weight, your posture is steady. A little way in, the weight starts to tell. Sam's stamina dips, his breathing gets hard, his steps get messier. You catch yourself using a gentler slope instead of the direct line because you're tired. Near the end, when the destination is in sight, but you've got one last awful hill to climb, every slip feels personal. And if it goes wrong, punishment has variety. Sometimes Sam cartoon slides down a rock while you scream and hammer the triggers. Sometimes he goes down hard and lies there winded while parcels scatter across the ground and BB starts sobbing. Sometimes that cargo gets swept away by a river, forcing you to backtrack, something you don't want to do because you might need to return to a BT zone. And even if you don't, each step drains your stamina or tears your boots. By forcing you to take walking seriously, the game inflates tiny victories into something you remember. Getting down a nasty hill without falling becomes as satisfying as winning a boss fight. Reaching a prepper's bunker without having dropped or ruined a single parcel feels like acing an exam. This journey to Port Knot City is arguably the toughest march in the game because your tools are limited. All the cool stuff is drip-fed as we connect way stations, meaning there's a lovely, consistent feeling of progression. You conquer America with toys and gadgets that don't eliminate the need to meditatively consider the walk, but simply change how you consider it. Here at the start, we have ladders and a climbing anchor. One lets us go up, another goes down, protecting us and our cargo. Sort of. Ladders are coated in jank. You can't change their length, so if there's a steep cliff that's too high to climb but too short to match the full height of a ladder, you need to clamber to the top and tumble off. Those tools make Sam more adaptable, but it comes at a cost. A sticky gun will soon become your best friend because the landscape is littered with lost cargo that can be used in various ways. Equipment that will help us climb a mountain, or lost cargo that will add to the XP gained for delivering to each shelter. But that gun, just like all of your gear, counts as cargo, weighing Sam down like a pack mule. That means there's a sense of stress and relief, considerations and sacrifice as we use them. Deploying a ladder lets me climb this cliff and lightens my load, but I need to be careful about when I use them because we can't craft them in the field and they're a one and done. Later, you can equip power rigs, exosuits that speed Sam up or let him carry heavier loads, or even run up steep inclines. They have a battery that drains, so you better bring a generator with you. We can deploy 2 floating carriers that can bear a heavy load, but they can get caught in objects, use up precious chiralium, and will snap if Sam's journey is too steep. And you can also ride them like a snowboard. Do not ride them like a snowboard. In the final third, we can make a buddy bot, change its colors, load it with packages, and have it follow us around with cute bleeps and bloops. These little legends will struggle on rough terrain, and if you take them into uncharted territory, they'll disconnect from the chiral network and become a useless hunk of junk. Thankfully, Sam can take a quick break because he's connected his first way station, the first knot on a long strand of rope.
It's a funny word, strand. A strand is part of rope or bond, while stranding means being washed up on the shore. And being stranded is when you can't go home.
Thanks, Amelie. In his dreams, Sam can visit the beach. Amelie can pull his soul over to where she waits for him. Whether this actually happens or if it's simply him dreaming of her is up for debate, but their connection keeps him going. She gives him a dream catcher, a symbol of their bond, and a way to keep the most harrowing of his dooms-induced nightmares at bay. Amelie herself doesn't wear one. She doesn't need to. Instead, she holds tight to a quipu, an ancient pendant full of strings and knots. It was a communications device, once used by the Incans, and if Amelie's quipu is more than just jewelry, what do the knots communicate? What's the message locked inside? Because time moves differently on the beach, an hour in our world might be a week there, Amelie has been stranded, alone in this reality forever. Are the knots her way of keeping track of that time? Sam's sleep might be interrupted, but whenever he rests, he recovers completely. His batteries charge, his canteen is refilled, and BB-28 gets some much-needed sleep. These are just some of the things you need to monitor while out and about. Journeys between way stations can be exhausting, but there's a meditative flow to Death Stranding's rhythm. Long stretches of flat land become these calming, hypnotic walks. Slow your pace a bit, sip a drink, hum along to the music when it kicks in. The micromanagement that accompanies a long walk becomes part of that flow. The stamina bar slowly degrades the longer we walk, and that degradation gets faster on rocky ground or large hills. How long Sam can hold his breath is determined by that stamina bar. Same goes when hunters clawed his feet, so you don't want to be coughing and gasping when you inevitably hit a BT zone. Drinking from Sam's canteen will refill it to a certain point, but you need to refill that canteen by passing through rivers or getting caught in the rain, something you don't want to do if you can help it. The same goes for taking a rest, stretching your legs and massaging your shoulders, especially if you do it near a cairn where another player also took a break. Stamina gets hammered and blood starts to flow if your shoes get wrecked, something that quickly stops being a problem once you upgrade your footwear, but here, in the first length of our journey, it's good to scavenge some sandalweed just to be safe. It can wrap around Sam's feet to buy him an extra mile. If you don't, you're treated to a grim scene where he pulls his toenail off. Nobody wants to watch Sam pull his toenail off. BB-28 is what matters most, lending to the game's overall message and Sam's personal arc. If she's happy and excited, something you can earn from mastering the terrain, doing double jumps, or going for nice soothing drives, she'll slow that stamina drain. But if anything goes wrong, if you trip and fall, if you stay too long in a BT zone, she'll start to cry. When I played Death Stranding, I had to mute the TV when BB started to cry. It stressed out your mother, made her paranoid that you had woken up. The game understands the acute pain a human being feels upon hearing a baby cry. It's why games like The Evil Within or Alan Wake have incorporated that sound into the shrieks of their monsters. Nobody wants to hear it, so unless you're a monster, you take special care on your journey. Everyone around Sam calls her BB. Notably, right here in the first act, Sam's already calling her kid. If she does get upset, you can gently rock her to cheer her up. Little bubbles pop out of her mouth in the shape of hearts, playing off primal instincts to make us feel bonded to her. Although there's nothing a video game can do to replicate the physical toll rocking takes on a person. Rocking 7 crying kilograms back to sleep for 30 minutes will make your back creak. Trust me. If BB gets too stressed out, she'll suffer from autotoxemia, shutting down completely. The inky black shield that hides her away is a depressing image, but in gameplay what that means is we can't see BTs. Thankfully, Deadman's on hand at the next distribution center to help fix her up.
Temporary excessive stress, easily addressed if we return it to its mother's womb. Mother? Located in the capital Knot City ICU.
BB-28's mother is in a vegetative state back at headquarters. It's one of the side effects of the Death Stranding. If you have a baby, there's a chance you'll end up in that state, labelled a still mother. Amelie will later tell us that the birth rate has dropped, and frankly no wonder if this is a likely outcome. Those babies are then removed via C-section, put inside an artificial womb, and used as tools to detect monsters. It's cruel, but Bridges believes it to be necessary if we're going to conquer America. 7-month-old babies hang between the lands of the living and the dead, given that they need the womb to survive so they can act as a bridge to the other side. This is quite messy science and relies on Death Stranding's supernatural rules to be taken at face value. In reality, some babies can survive outside of the womb as early as 22 weeks. Once you cut them off from their mother, their connection to the land of the dead is surely severed. Medically, Bridges is forcing children to stay in that symbiotic state to further their experiments. They claim that if a BB is removed from their unit, they die. How true that is remains to be seen. Kojima Productions is a Japanese studio, which means it's important to bring in that cultural perspective. Death Stranding seems to make the case that a baby's soul is entwined with its mother's while in the womb, and that spiritual connection remains even when its umbilical cord is cut. That ties to how Japan culturally sees personhood. Take Sugiyama Lebra discussed this in her work, Japanese Patterns of Behaviour. Quote, "There is an interdependent self, whose boundaries are permeable and whose existence is defined through others rather than apart from them. The idea is that your sense of self is spiritually linked to those around you. Connection is important, especially between a mother and her unborn child. In fact, there's a contemporary Buddhist ritual called Mizuko Kuyo that helps aborted, miscarried, or stillborn babies pass on." In their essay, Rethinking the Practice of Mizuko Kuyo in Contemporary Japan, the anthropologists Elaine Martin and Richard Anderson said that Mizuko is constituted through its relationship to a child's parents, particularly the mother. Personhood is relational, emerging from emotional and social bonds. Death Stranding also makes that biological. Son, I know that might seem a little heavy, but one day you'll understand why this matters. The spirit of an unborn child is important to our family, and there's something beautiful in how Mizuko Kuyo approaches its soul and how that soul connects to its parents. To Sam, BB-28 is more than cargo, more than just a package to lug across the country. And thank goodness, because the cargo menu can be frustrating as heck, so I think it would impact how we feel about our little bridge baby. If walking is tethered to purposeful friction that is all part of the plan, I believe the menu system is purposeless friction. It's cumbersome, clunky, and full of jank. When prepping to go out on a delivery, like Sam is right now, gearing up for the final stretch to Port Knot City, you're funneled down a pipeline of decisions. For example, if you accept an order, that leads you straight into fabricating some tools, then picking a vehicle, and then the game kicks you out of the menu and expects you to start your journey. But as part of that preparation, you might want to recycle something you have, like some Takie boots that you've just replaced in the fabrication menu. If you don't recycle them before accepting an order, you need to go back into the terminal, access the master menu, and then recycle your kit. Sam has a private locker where he can store useful stuff that we might not want to use right now. You cannot recycle things straight from that locker. You need to go into the recycle menu. I have a used blood bag in here. The only thing I can do with it is recycle it or chuck it on the ground. You're pressing numerous buttons just for basic things. In some cases, that forces you to slow down and take stock, something that's pivotal to soaking in Death Stranding's atmosphere. But other times, It is just unnecessary. If you want to cancel some orders that you accepted, you have to do it one at a time, and it closes the menu every single time. Clunky menus have traditionally been something that pops up in a lot of the games that Kojima leads. Consider Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain. To do a main mission from Mother Base, you need to walk to a landing pad, call the chopper, climb in the chopper, let it fly away, then bring up the menu, go to the mission tab, select the mission you want to do, funnel on to the equipment menu, choose your equipment, and then where you want to drop in the mission. That game had an insane level of planning to empower you, so the depth was fair enough. But something as simple as recycling a pair of boots from our private locker should be more intuitive than it is in Death Stranding. I struggle to believe that the dozens of buttons for one simple action is purposeful here. Mainly because A, Death Stranding 2 would go on to soften these edges, and B, there's an incredibly intuitive option in the cargo menu to automatically sort where on Sam's body that cargo should go. I love this system, but if the point of numerous menu steps that funnel you down one exit was to force us into slowing down and being considerate, why are conveniences here and not elsewhere? Something else that's inconvenient about the menu is how interviews and music are used. If you're digging into Death Stranding's world, you'll be overwhelmed with logs of text, none of which are recorded with audio. Hartman will send dozens of theories into brain dumps, and the game forces you to sit in the menu and read them. If this was Metal Gear Solid 5, you'd be able to listen to him hypothesize while you travel. The argument could be made that we're meant to digest the lore like this. It should sit separately from our journeys. Our focus when walking should be on the minutiae of walking. If I'm making a plan to cross a river, I might not absorb that there's no blue in the various inverted rainbows we see, and how blue is the color of death because roundworms show up as blue under a UV light when they die. And what are you talking about, dead man? It doesn't really bother me that I'm expected to read pages and pages of detail. In fact, I think it's all really interesting and lets me collect information to wonder about while I climb a mountain. It's all part of the plan. But I do mind that Death Stranding has an astonishing soundtrack full of moody, licensed songs by low roar, silent poets, churches, and more, and I can't listen to any of it in the world outside of scripted moments. There's no Walkman feature that lets me play my favourites as I march on, even in the director's cut. In fact, the game is so determined to make you walk in silence that it won't even let you play the PlayStation Spotify app in the background. I have never known another game to do this. It's clearly a purposeful choice, so you're left alone with your thoughts, with the loneliness of the wilderness, and the solitary comforting chirrups of BB. But at the halfway point, I listened to a playlist on my phone and didn't lose any of that feeling. It's a privilege reserved for when you rest. As Sam reaches Port Knot City, he takes a break inside. The rumble of a storm isn't too far away, so the music can drown out the ominous groan of timefall. The music is treated like a reward for making it to a way station, but to add to the clunkiness, you need to select songs from the menu every single time. There's no autoplay function. Not that it would matter right now if there was, because that storm isn't because of timefall. Something more insidious rumbles outside Port Knot City. The BTs are attacking.
The name's Higgs, the particle of God that permeates all existence.
Higgs Monaghan is our baddie, the head of the Homo Demons. Armed with mysterious abilities and incredibly powerful level 7 dooms, he arrives to taunt Sam and unleash hell. It seems he can control the tar that bleeds through from the beach, and worst of all, he can control BTs. He seems to know Fragile, hints that he knows more than we do about the true nature of the Death Stranding, and most bizarre of all, calls Amelie an extinction entity. What does he mean? And why does he have a BB unit strapped to his chest? His threat is made clear in how he breaks the fourth wall, something that, in hindsight, hints to how little he truly understands. He claims to bring something we couldn't encounter before now. A game over. He's a finger pointing at Kojima's fanbase, the ones who are yet to find the fun in the loop of walking and way stations. He's giving us what we want, right? Real stakes in a boss fight. But Higgs is wrong here. We can hit a game over before he arrives. If we're caught by a BT in the same place twice, that's a game over. If we destroy important cargo that's linked to the main campaign, that's also a game over. Higgs understands almost everything, but when the closing act comes, The important word there is almost. Sam beats him back and settles in for the next stretch of his journey. His long walk isn't over. All of this, it's been one fat tutorial. Son, one day you'll forget that you ever crawled. Walking will be automatic. You'll run for the sheer joy of it. You won't remember what it was like to cling to the edge of the sofa, taking tiny, careful, sideways steps. I can't wait for that day, for the freedom it'll give you. But Death Stranding never lets walking be forgotten. Even when we build roads or zip up mountains, the journey doesn't become background noise. 10, 20, 50 hours in, you're still thinking about your footing, still adjusting your grip, still treating a good path across rough ground as a little miracle. Before you can carry the world on your back, you need to learn how to stand.
Remember, in life, secure your own life jacket first. A drowning helper saves no one.
At the end of 2025, a game called Clair Obscur Expedition 33 won Game of the Year at the Game Awards. The director, Guillaume Broche, seen here looking very French, said something really beautiful in his acceptance speech. Quote, "I want to extend a thanks to the unsung heroes of this industry, the people who make tutorials on YouTube on how to make a game because we had no idea how to make a game before. I also want to extend a personal thank you to an important man in my life, Hironobu Sakaguchi, who made me fall in love with his games and inspired me to become a game developer." It was a brilliant speech because it acknowledged the work that came before Clair Obscur, the art that inspired it and paved the way for it. Hironobu Sakaguchi is responsible for Final Fantasy, a turn-based RPG with a colourful cast of characters and an interesting, whimsical world. In a way, Broche and Sakaguchi collaborated on Clair Obscur without ever speaking, because inspiration is a form of collaboration. All great feats come from collaboration, even if it's collaboration with the past. Clair Obscur wouldn't exist without the inspiration of Final Fantasy. Resident Evil wouldn't exist without the inspiration of Alone in the Dark. The internet wouldn't exist without Tim Berners-Lee's World Wide Web, and the web wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Vint Cerf and Bob Kahn's IP protocols a decade prior. None of those men would have been able to do what they do if the computer wasn't invented, and the computer wouldn't have been invented without George Stibitz and his Model K circuit. The Model K circuit wouldn't exist without Charles Babbage and Ada Lovelace laying the groundwork in the 19th century. Death Stranding's social system wouldn't exist without the pages of historical figures who established the internet. It also wouldn't look the way it does without the Decima engine, a game engine Kojima Productions did not create. Instead, that honour goes to Guerrilla Games, the creators of series like Killzone and Horizon. Sam Porter Bridges would not be able to connect America if it wasn't for his predecessors Bridges 1 already journeying west to set up the infrastructure needed to create the chiral network. Just like our real-world internet, establishing that network is a humongous act of collaboration. The Cupid he wears around his neck, the device that connects each shelter, was designed by the engineers Malignan and Lochner, building off of Hartman's research. What makes the chiral network special isn't that it can facilitate quick communication, it can access information from the past, because it uses the beach's timey-wimey properties. It's the key to rebuilding America, collaborating with a past that we thought we lost. For Sam, collaboration comes when crossing Ground Zero, an ocean of tar that split America down the middle. It wouldn't be possible without our mysterious new friend, Fragile.
I told you before, Sam. The past just won't let go.
All aboard the Fragile Express, a ship that will carry us across the bubbling pot of tar that separates America. This is where the Death Stranding truly began many years ago, simultaneous void-outs in the navel of the country. Embracing a moment of quiet, Sam asks Fragile what her angle is. She's got a story, but she's not ready to tell it yet. She sees potential in Sam, but she needs him to trust her before she shares. That will take some time because Sam is the saddest man in the world, cursed to never die and roam the apocalypse forever. His family are all dead or missing. Any potential friends only like him because he's useful. But most importantly of all, he can't connect to others physically, a thematic explanation for why the game embraces something called the social strand system, a form of asynchronous multiplayer. In 2019, Hideo Kojima tweeted out that Death Stranding would introduce us to a new genre, A Strand-type game. What do you mean it's a new genre? Fans asked. What the hell is a Strand-type game? In a way, people have played a Strand-type game before. From Software's Souls games, for example, have used similar systems. You can leave messages to other players warning of danger ahead. If you find someone's message and think it's useful, you can vote for it. If you do, that message is more likely to show up in other people's games. Asynchronous multiplayer, a social Strand system. Game Reactor quickly picked up on that and challenged the idea that this was a brand new revolutionary concept. And here is what Kojima replied with. I don't actually play that many other games. I'm simply too busy. But I don't want to create a new genre. Everyone says it's an open world, it's a stealth game. I just wanted to answer the no, that's not the case. The name Social Strand is more fair to the game. Kojima's statement was clearly written in frustration because he was sick of getting asked what kind of game Death Stranding was. By the time he'd written this, there was plenty of gameplay footage online that showed us walking and cargo management. It was an off-the-cuff tweet, probably written on the toilet, that quickly spun out of control. Classic Hideo Kojima. It wasn't just Souls that had a similar system. Metal Gear Solid 5 also did this. Players needed to collectively disarm their own nukes for anyone to get a secret cutscene. In his video covering the game, Matthewmatosis pointed out that Nobi Nobi Boy has a system where players indirectly help each other without ever seeing each other. It's those last 5 words that are pivotal to understanding Death Stranding's social system. Without ever seeing each other. In Dark Souls, you can jump into someone else's world and kick a boss's butt. In Nobi Nobi and Death Stranding, you can't. You will never see another Sam running through the hills, and that's what makes it powerful. It's more than asynchronous multiplayer, it's asynchronous collaboration. As Sam arrives in Lake Knot City and bids farewell to Fragile, she gives him a bracelet. The preppers in this area don't trust bridges, they don't want to be part of the UCA. But we need to connect their shelters if we're going to expand the chiral network. The best way to do that is to show them that Fragile's on board with the idea. Her organization held the center of America together. They didn't even accept any form of payment. They just carry cargo because they know it's the only thing keeping people going. Not for the last time, son, we're reminded that Fragile rocks. Her bracelet bonds Sam to her the same way he's bonded to Bridges with the cufflinks. Thankfully for Sam, her design's not as stupid and won't rub his wrists raw. Connecting these bunkers to the chiral network is pivotal because before we do, we're effectively offline in the region that surrounds each one. It's a smart system because it stops journeys from becoming trivial. You need to overcome the landscape yourself without any help, just how Sam likes it. Seeing other players' structures makes the world feel less lonely, and hooking various shelters up to the network means there's an ebb and flow to that loneliness. The world is barren until we let a little life leak through via the network. Structures built by friends that you'll never meet. Abandoned vehicles that appear just in the nick of time. They're weathered by timefall or crashed into a gorge, but still useful if you can rescue them. If you find anything like this, you can like it to say thank you. The game never explicitly communicates this, but likes are effectively experience points. As you gain more and more, Sam's stats will buff up, meaning he can carry more cargo. The like system doesn't completely rely on goodwill. Some of it is automated. If, say, you use another player's climbing anchor sat twinkling over a difficult cliff, you'll automatically chuck a like their way. But unless you're a stinky brain, you'll spam some likes manually when the prompt appears. It costs you nothing and it strengthens your bond with that player. What they create will start to show up more in your world. If numerous players use the same route, a path will slowly start to form, kicked into dirt. The world will change and take shape based on the thousands of Sams that have come before and the thousands of Sams that will come after. I have to wonder if automating any of this strengthens the game's message though. There's no sacrifice because likes are unlimited and you automatically give them out anyway, and Death Stranding repeatedly looks at what we sacrifice for a better tomorrow. Around about now, Die Hardman talks about the symbiotic surveillance society that you and I see in our day-to-day. People want their lives to be smooth and stress-free, and countless companies are happy to oblige. The idea is that we sacrifice our data, browsing history, purchasing history, that kind of thing, for a pleasant, personalized internet experience. There are a lot of holes to pick when it comes to the ethics of data harvesting, especially today where half of our lives are lived online. The big one for me is what that does to people power. It causes a huge imbalance between individuals and corporations, and when those corporations work with governments, that targeting goes beyond commercial use. It can turn it into political brainwashing or even as a tool of mass murder, something that's very prevalent in the year I'm writing this. Folks are growing more apathetic about this stuff, and I worry it won't even be something that's discussed when you're older. We see this imbalance in how quickly Bridges pushes its propaganda using the network. The second anyone is connected to it, the ability to access the internet, to use 3D printers to make stuff, wipes away their concerns. The Elder and the Craftsman are uncertain about the UCA, but when they finally get plugged in, they see the world through new eyes. We're never told if Bridges harvests data, but considering they control and created the chiral network, there's every possibility that they are. A big brother system in every bunker. Die Hardman argues that there's no such thing as a free lunch. Connectivity and convenience have to come at a price, but there is a free lunch in Death Stranding. It's almost impossible to cause another player harm or even inconvenience them. I say almost because some people stick climbing anchors near roads to trip up vehicles. Whoops, how did that footage get in there? At least with Dark Souls, you could put a message down that leads someone unwittingly into a trap. Death Stranding doesn't have that option. It's surprisingly lenient. Kindness literally costs nothing, but if we're treating the game as a philosophical text full of parable, how true is that? To fall into Death Stranding's message, you're expected to give yourself over to its optimistic social system completely. It's all about taking a penny to give a penny. Wow, you might think. Thank God there was a generator back there or my truck would have broken down. I haven't seen one in a while, so even though I don't need it myself, I'll plop a generator here in case someone else does. Build for others in the blind hope that they build for you. The world has been designed to have a bleak aesthetic and story-based dangers, but scrape past all of that, and you have an existential tale that forces you, at the very least, to be a good person. What would Death Stranding look like if you could harvest player structures for resources? Less comforting for sure, more frustrating, definitely. But perhaps we would see the human condition reflected back at us in a more realistic way. Son, when they can hide behind an online mask, people can suck. The dialect of the internet is snark and interference. The mission structure is designed to make you appreciate your connections to others because you'll backtrack a few times. That means you get to enjoy the presence of other players, the tiny stories their structures tell, and the bumping music some of them have added to their own little pieces of America. Signs are one of the more underrated parts of connection. You can leave them anywhere in the network for free, so if you've formed a variety of bonds, soon the horizon will be dotted with messages of support, warnings, or holographic waving arms that point you to things like memory chips or minerals. If you pass through them, you award an automatic like, but in return, you typically get a little bit of help. Keep on keeping on, a hologram of a raised fist tells me as it spins and jingles. It refills Sam's stamina and keeps the cheer. Ones featuring BB cheer her up and strengthens our bond. They always, without exception, remind us that we're not alone. Death Stranding abandons writing in favor of interpretation here. We can't customize the messages we leave behind. They're relegated to emojis and symbols. The signs are hieroglyphics for the digital age. Meaning is inferred, and because it's inferred, it involves us, making it mean more. Keep on keeping on isn't just a message of strength, it's given power by the image of a raised fist. How do you keep on keeping on at the end of the world? By constantly reminding yourself that everyone's in the same boat, that this too will pass, and all anyone wants is to feel the warmth of connection and the thrill of collaboration. Son, if there's anything I want you to take away from this, it's that.
Look, I gotta ask. I've been hearing things about you.
She's in bed with terrorists. Don't trust her.
Sam's time with the Preppers starts to raise suspicions. They rely on Fragile Express, but some of them have mentioned that she's a terrorist who once helped the Homo Demons bomb Middle Knot City. There's more to the story, Fragile says. She too is someone who collaborates with the past. Fragile Express was her father's idea, and when he died, she took it over. She soon joined forces with Higgs, not to sow chaos, but to simply deliver cargo. He had other plans, using her as cover so he could deliver weapons, eventually tricking her into delivering a nuke to Middle Knot City. She's in this for revenge. She doesn't care about the UCA. Her father believed in connecting people, but he was no fan of bridges. Instead, she wants Sam to help her stop Higgs. If we're going to do that though, we need to take the country back from terrorists, shape it into something more hopeful. Make America whole again. PCCs are one of the main ways that we do that. a portable chiral constructor, one of the game's more brilliant ideas. Bridges to connect wide chasms, generators to charge up electric tools, watchtowers that let us scan our surroundings and mark important items or enemies. Timefall shelters give us a rest from the rain, completely repairs all of our cargo, and can keep Sam warm when the snow comes. Safe houses offer rest and relaxation. Jump ramps give vehicles a quick boost. Cargo catapults let us shoot packages over long distances, or if you're feeling like Bugs Bunny, you can Looney Tunes bad guys by shooting at them. Chiral bridges make for quick, efficient routes over rivers. Zip lines let you whoosh around the country quick fast. A post box lets us drop off useful stuff for other players, like minerals, or pick up useful stuff left for us. All of these are contained in a tiny 5-kilogram box. When planning your journey, they're where the fun lies. They let us shape the world. Importantly, we can't spam the land with larger structures like bridges or safe houses. That's because A, they always need extra minerals to complete and they're precious until the endgame, and B, the chiral network has limited bandwidth that we need to keep track of. If you use it all up, you need to delete old structures to make room. That encourages strengthening your bond with other players because their structures don't use up that bandwidth. Death Stranding's loop focuses on positive reinforcement rather than negative reinforcement. By the end of the game, America is transformed through these structures. If you set up a zipline network in the mountains, you have a roller coaster at your fingertips that speeds up delivery and connects each of those hard-to-reach shelters. After hours of having my butt kicked by the snow, it felt triumphant to conquer it with some well-placed PCCs, alongside some friends who had the same idea. Timefall rots these structures away. Bridges learns that chiralium can act as a shield if you paint buildings with it. It's how the bunkers and distribution centers have lasted as long as they have, but that shield does erode eventually. The idea is that if you don't want to lose what you've built, you need to deliver resources to keep them ticking over. There are a couple of problems with this. The first is that structures, mercifully, take ages to rot away. It isn't until the closing chapters, when a timefall storm batters what you've built, that you'll start to lose stuff. The leniency means building doesn't get frustrating, but it also means it's a mechanic you don't really need to worry about. The second is that the economy's off kilter when it comes to those repairs. Here's a generator that's been decimated by timefall. To repair it, it costs 1,085 chiral crystals. Steep, but building a brand new generator with a PCC just costs 32 resins and 40 metals. That is barely a drop in the bucket by the time we get into this situation. You're better off just dismantling broken stuff and building new ones. Give me a minute, Jenny, let me just grab what I need.
Someone double-tagged it so the system couldn't tell whether it's for Fragile Express or Bridges. Anywho, really sorry for the holdup, and careful. The contents are fragile.
Hey, pal, why are you laughing? As we prepare to hit our last stop, South Knot City, a suspicious Troy Baker-looking mother trucker arrives to give us a package for delivery. A small, fragile thermonuclear bomb. It's Higgs up to his bullpoop again, a delivery with higher stakes. Working against the clock, we've got to blast across the map to chuck the bomb into a tar lake. Hope it contains the explosion. It's a great moment where all the cargo mechanics work together, and thankfully, it's a cakewalk because I've spent hours building roads. Roads are addictive because it turns all the abstract systems you've been juggling into something concrete. Up to this point, materials are just numbers in a menu: metallics, ceramics, chiral crystals, vague resources that mostly exist as weight on Sam's back. The second you start engaging with autopavers, they become a satisfying to-do list. Every shelter and distribution center is absurdly generous with stock, especially as you rank them up, so they stop being pit stops and turn into supply hubs. If I go to see the craftsman, I can grab a pile of ceramics, then swing past the engineer for metals and pave a road on my way back to Lake Knot City. The game quietly rewires how you plan routes. You're no longer thinking in terms of A to B deliveries, you're thinking in circuits. Every trip has a main job and a road funding side hustle attached. The economy is important. Roads start affordable and then quickly ramp up in cost. Connecting the eastern region up to the mountains can cost 3,000 chiral crystals, 5,600 metals, and 7,200 ceramics for a single stretch. That is hours of work, not a casual donation. There's a clear psychological trick there. Once you've sunk that much into a project, you're invested. When that section finally materializes, the relief is mechanical, not just emotional. cargo arrives pristine, time limits effectively evaporate, and a run that used to take 15 minutes of anxious rock hopping is now a smooth 2-minute drive. The game lets you feel, in very direct terms, what infrastructure does. It converts time and stress into efficiency. Roads are the clearest expression of Bridge's whole ideology. Connection makes life easier. It's why taxes exist. The question is whether you're ready to pay the price in proving it. There's also a neat tension between individual effort and invisible collaboration. Autopavers only complete if players feed the materials, so every finished stretch of road is proof that someone, somewhere, cared enough to chip in. Sometimes it's obvious you've joined a busy shard where dozens of people have been donating. Early highways pop up quickly and you feel like you're surfing on the generosity of strangers. Later, especially near the mountains, that illusion falls away. You start dropping 2,000 crystals into a paver and it barely moves. No one else is topping it up. If this road is going to exist, it'll be because you made it happen. And that shift is weirdly powerful. I don't see any Bridges staff hiking up here. Do you? What stops roads from ruining the game is that they don't actually delete the walking, they just change where the friction lives. A paved highway makes valley travel trivial, but they don't all reach into BT nests or climb awkward hills to remote preppers. You are still doing dangerous hikes for premium deliveries, still swapping to floating carriers when the terrain gets too wild for tires. The road network becomes a backbone rather than a solution to everything. Do a horrible slog up a snowy ridge, then bomb down to the main road and relax on the final stretch. That contrast is the point. The satisfaction comes from feeling the before and after every single time you enter a once hostile area and realize it's now part of your safe, domesticated circuit. Even the racetrack grows out of that logic. You spent hours feeding resources into anonymous grey pavers, smoothing out ugly hills because it makes work bearable. The track takes those same systems and says, well, alright, but what if this wasn't work for once? Vehicle handling suddenly tightens up, drifting becomes a thing, and the game temporarily drops the pretense of being about survival so you can just muck about. That silliness only lands because you understand how hostile the world used to be. You remember what those tires went through to get here. You smile at the sight of the horizon changing because of the work you and a set of invisible friends put in. Every time a new autopaver lights up, the game quietly proves its thesis. Effort today can ease someone else's tomorrow. That's why it feels so good. It's not the smooth tarmac or the extra likes, it's the knowledge that the next porter who barrels down that stretch is benefiting from the hours you spent nicking ceramics from every bunker in sight. Though I will admit, it is nice to use them to get one over on Higgs, especially when Fragile tells us the full story of why she wants her revenge.
He caught me red-handed outside the gates. Nuke still cradled in my arms like a child.
After Middle Knot City, Higgs tried to trick Fragile a second time. She was wise to his act though, and at the last minute, tried to get the bomb far away. As punishment, he stripped her down to nothing and summoned the Timefall. She could teleport if she wanted to, save her body, but if she did, she would lose the nuke and South Knot City would explode. You can't take items to the beach. She took the damage and the goods. Fragile by name, but not by nature. She saved the city at the cost of her body, but ever since, she's regretted the decision. She believes that regret stops her from being heroic. She puts more meaning into intentions than action. And because of how it's framed, the game clearly believes that she's wrong to do so. Fragile is a hero, and even though she's powered by vengeance, nothing can take that away from her. This moment, I would argue, is where the game's story becomes gripping. Up until now, Death Stranding's been a brooding, fascinating mood piece, but this reveal with Fragile and Higgs gives us an interesting goal to work toward that isn't save Amelie. Amelie's presence has been too mysterious to be emotionally invested in. A creature like Higgs is tangible. There's something to be said for making an ultra-cruel, apocalyptic brat that revels in that cruelty. Collaboration and connection only work with the best intentions. Fragile collaborated with a monster, and look what happened to her. As she sits with Sam, she quietly hopes that this time will be different.
Tip 77. The more you grow, the more you'll catch yourself thinking about the future or about the past, and it's easy to get lost in that. Try to find ways to stay in the present, because otherwise you might not notice how life passes you by.
Lethal weapons shouldn't be in Death Stranding. They're mechanically shapeless, not integrated enough with other tools, feel like bloat in the menu, and thematically confusing. Because the game is laser focused on non-lethality, there's just one scenario where they're useful: the supernova time travel battles. Son, it's better if I just show you. Outside South Knot City, Sam and BB are swept up in a whirlwind and blasted onto the beach. It's carnage, a war zone, trenches, bodies, gunfire, and madness. The technology and style of battle place it in the early 20th century, World War I. As Sam tries to figure out where he is and how to escape, a mysterious figure hunts for him, Clifford Unger. He's surrounded by effortlessly cool imagery mixed in a horror-flavoured soup. He peels off a barbed wire spider web, nail-bitten baby dolls are impaled on the spikes. He manifests a cigarette and lights it on the embers of war, a character detail added late into development because his actor Mads Mikkelsen smokes. The look and feel is intense and bizarre, visual poetry that tells us one simple fact: his beach is in a constant state of flux. We'll soon learn that his was a furious death, and because he was a soldier in real life, his afterlife is war-torn. We'll later learn that Cliff can travel between beaches, and Hartman hypothesizes that huge lumps of death blend numerous beaches together. So, whether or not this is all a manifestation of him, or a sign that he can travel between beaches formed from battle, is up for debate. Why is he here? And why is he hunting for BB-28? The answers don't come yet, but it's a whirlwind of a boss fight. Mustard gas suffocates Sam, heavy gunfire pins him into the trench. We are trapped by Cliff's fury, forced to fight him as his voice echoes all around. He's difficult to pick up visually because of the chaos and the 4 skeletal soldiers that flank him. The Audra deck is our only hope. To defeat Cliff, we have to shoot him. There's no non-lethal option here, and surprisingly, for a game all about walking and logistics, shooting feels good. The heft of the weapons bring gravitas. The rattle of bullets is satisfying. When you beat him back, slow motion whirls in to make you feel powerful. Once Cliff is defeated and Sam is tossed back into the real world, it's hard to let go of the thrill that he brought. But lethal weapons still shouldn't be in Death Stranding.
Sam? It's been less than a minute since we last spoke.
That can't be right. I was there for hours, it felt like.
Bridges theorizes that this supercell happened because of the chiral network. As we keep linking up shelters, there's a chance it will happen again. Good for us, because Unger's an interesting mystery to solve and fighting him is capital C cool. Bad, however, for America. Hartman says the chiral density we're contributing to isn't so bad that we should worry, but methinks a lady doth protest too much. We will soon learn that he's wrong. We should be very, very worried about all of this. Almost as worried as we should be if we kill someone. Void outs aren't just a punishment for getting eaten by a BT. They're also a punishment if we forego the rope, embrace the stick, and indulge in some cold-blooded murder. On Sam's travels, he'll run into various bad guys roaming the open world. If he whips out a shiny new assault rifle and kills one of those bad guys, an invisible timer starts to count down. The corpse necrotizes, and if time runs out, boom, void out. There's one way to avoid that: the incinerator. Just like when we carried Bridget, we need to dump all our cargo and lug a corpse up the mountain to burn it away. It's in an inconvenient location, out of the way and difficult to reach unless you've built a road. What that means is killing someone is a pain in the bum. Just like real life, am I speaking from experience? Wahaha. Inconvenience is the best word to describe all of this. Void outs are set up as apocalyptic in universe. They could wipe out cities. That's true of the ones that come from BT deaths, but killing someone has a very different fail state. If we trigger a void out, Die Hardman calls Sam, yells at him, and we're forced to reload to a previous save. In that save, the corpse is now gone and no void out occurs. It's like we didn't kill anyone. Resetting your save is punishment enough, especially if you're halfway through a tricky delivery, but it's not quite the reactive consequence that BT void outs cause. It's a game limitation necessitated by where enemies are positioned around the world. A lot of them are quite close to way stations and roads. A void out in those areas would wipe out some game-critical assets. The threat of annihilation is so effectively conveyed that it's enough to make you lug that body up the mountain. Death Stranding's atmosphere counters a lot of the nitty-gritty stuff, but in practice, murder is an inconvenience because the execution lacks. There are a couple of ways to kill someone. A bullet to the brain is just one example, but you can also run them over in your truck. That means that lethal weapons aren't necessitated to bring death to Death Stranding, which begs the question, why are they here? Metal Gear Solid constantly returned to the dangers of nuclear weapons. Death Stranding gives us a world where nukes aren't needed. Any killing can lead to mutually assured destruction. One of the things that made Higgs so dangerous was he was smuggling weapons around the country to increase the likelihood of void-outs. But then along comes Bridges, an organization directly opposed to Higgs. Look at them go, preaching about the importance of the rope, a tool that bonds people together, while manufacturing various flavors of stick that could kill us all. There are plenty of weapons to choose from. Handguns, assault rifles, non-lethal assault rifles, shotguns, grenade launchers, actual grenades, stun grenades, maser guns, electrocute bad guys, rocket launchers. The argument goes that lethal tools are here so that they mesh with the cliff sections, but every weapon has alternate blood-based ammunition that takes out BTs. That means we could easily say that Clifford Unger, being a spectre on the beach, can only be hurt by blood ammo. That would remove a mechanical need for lethal weapons in a gameplay sense and would mean it doesn't jar with the world building or Bridges' mission. What the game is trying to say with them is unclear. It could be to show Bridges' hypocrisy. We'll soon learn that it's an organization sincerely trying to do good, but that good is built on a foundation of lies and reprehension. However, that hypocrisy isn't explored. It isn't treated as a revelation because Sam doesn't question it. He just 3D prints another handgun. It could also be that the game is simply saying, Americans gonna American. Sam's mission is to reconnect America so it can be rebuilt into something better than what it was before the Death Stranding. Despite his obvious fascination with the United States, Kojima has grown more and more critical of America's culture and political position as time has gone on. When Metal Gear Solid 5 released, he said, quote, "In the past, the US was the center of the world, where everything was happening. I think my stories have always sought to question this, maybe even criticize it." So perhaps the inclusion of lethal weapons shows how intrinsic gun culture is to America in any of its forms. That would be interesting if so, but Death Stranding's America isn't America, something we'll get to later, and nowhere in the dozens of interviews, hundreds of emails, or hours of cutscenes is a mention of the Second Amendment. Instead, that's relegated to the novelization. There, Fragile's father, a porter, muses that the Second Amendment can be blamed for how quickly America fell. Citizens were armed with easy, convenient ways to slaughter each other when panic spread. Lethal weapons offer freedom to a player, but there's nothing attractive about them. Using one brings inconvenience. Their cost is negligible. An assault rifle that fires rubber bullets is slightly less effective than an assault rifle that fires real ones, but the damage difference is minimal. As we hook up more shelters, we unlock fancy new sticks to kill with, but the only weapon you're ever going to need is available before the halfway point, the non-lethal assault rifle. Everything else just clutters up the crafting menu. But the cruelty of Death Stranding's monsters make lethal weapons appealing to that dark, primal part of the brain that Fragile clings to: revenge. Sam's next stop gives us the perfect example.
She's hungry.
What the?
Millennium, a Bridges scientist who goes by the name Mama, is in a laboratory a few miles north of South Knot City. It's built into the rubble and wreckage of a decimated hospital, her home and her prison. Mama is a brutal victim of the homo demons. Once upon a time, she fell pregnant, meaning she was in this hospital waiting for a C-section when the terrorists hit. She was crushed under the rubble and nobody came for days. Her baby died inside her, but because the lives of mother and child are entwined in the womb, it wasn't able to move on. A baby BT connected to her via a spiritual umbilical cord. Seeing how Sam cradles BB-28, she immediately empathizes. She sees a fellow parent, physically incapable of holding their child. She's the first person to speak to BB like a real baby, smiling as she babbles, asking her if the grown-ups can talk for a minute. She thinks that the chiral spikes in the air are only getting bad because Sam's Cupid is faulty. The chiral network is out of whack. It's nothing a bit of engineering won't fix, but the software we need is with her twin sister, Lochna, in Mountain Knot City. Maybe we're making things worse, maybe we're not, but it's the only plan that we've got. A sea of terrorists sit between us and our goal. Mama's story is harrowing. It lines up with everything that we've learned about Higgs and his acolytes, so when the opportunity comes to gun them down, a small voice might just whisper, "Do it. Son, you never want to become a person that wishes death on others. But a light twatting is okay. Our second enemy faction, mules, deserve our sympathy. They've set up bases across America and have hoarded cargo that comes in all shapes and sizes. This ranges from key resources that help with road building to lost parcels belonging to preppers. They are faceless and voiceless, an interesting choice for a sympathetic bad guy. Heck, despite being capitalized, their name doesn't stand for anything explicit. Kojima Productions loves acronyms, but in naming them, they resist the urge because an acronym would imply structure, intent, and organization. The mules don't really have any of that. They're not a faction with a manifesto, they're a condition. Once they were porters, couriers, people whose sense of self was tied to movement, routes, drop-offs, and the quiet satisfaction of a job completed. It all releases oxytocin, a necessary drug in a world this depressing. But now they've changed. Mules don't steal cargo because they need what's inside. Half the time it's useless to them. They steal because taking is the closest thing left to purpose. Cargo becomes a coping mechanism, a way to feel normal in a world that took normal away. In fact, they ignore Sam completely if he's not carrying any. Mechanically, they are the perfect enemy for Death Stranding because they don't challenge your aim, they challenge your flow. A mule zone is highlighted by sensors that immediately mark your location once you cross the line. Sensors ping, poles crack against your cargo, trucks barrel across a terrain that you had carefully planned to walk. When it all kicks off, the game gently nudges you away from lethal solutions because of the threat of void outs and good old-fashioned empathy if you're digging into the lore. The rope over the stick, again and again. These aren't monsters, and they aren't Higgs. They're Sam without the purpose that Bridges and eventually BB-28 affords. Son, there's a branch of philosophy that claims human beings are born into evil and structure is needed to contain it, to push us to be better. It's why Death Stranding's main cast cling to government in Bridges. The irony is, Bridges' structure is built on a disgusting lie. When we finally reach Lochner, she wants nothing to do with that structure.
That voice, is that you, Mama? You hit your head there, Mama?
I'm not yours, and yours is no kind of mother.
Lochner tells us to leave. Sam's working for Bridges, and Bridges means her sister. The pair could once communicate across great distances using their Doom's abilities, but the relationship has soured. See, after Lochner's partner died, Malignan agreed to carry a child for her using his frozen sperm. Then, the terrorists hit the hospital, and the rest is history. Trapped in her lab, and with no chiral network to communicate through, Malignan suddenly vanished and cut off all contact. Lochner believed her sister had run off with the baby, and in her grief and anger, she severed ties with Bridges. If we're going to get that software, we need to repair the rift between the two sisters. Time to backtrack through baddie-infested lands. Don't worry though, we might not be able to kill the men responsible for all this tragedy, but we can still hurt them. You know, for kicks. Do it for the ceramics, baby. Death Stranding isn't Metal Gear Solid. That's a series famous for its reactive infiltration, stealth, and combat. It also doesn't need to be Metal Gear Solid. Shaping the world, managing cargo, climbing hills, and crossing rivers is already satisfying enough that we don't need to kick butt to feel like we're kicking butt. But sometimes, it feels like it's trying to be. Fighting is the least interesting part of the game, and yet it's still interesting, full of quirky depth that you can discover without it holding your hand. Infiltrating a base offers up options and tools that don't just boil down to pulling a trigger. We already talked about shooting cargo at their head with a catapult, but you can also just lob a briefcase at them with a satisfying tactile swing that needs you to control Sam's arms independently. Remote stun bombs can be planted in a river, meaning you can lure baddies into water and electrocute a bunch of them in one fell swoop. Electronic disruptors fry trucks and sensors to help with a stealthier approach. When all else fails, Sam could just punch them in the face, but if you arm him with the strand rope, you can parry them for a quick, crunchy one-hit knockdown that ties them up. Ropes are useful for cargo and combat. Sticks aren't. Their only purpose is violence. If you spot the cargo you need from a ridge, you can just pull it in with the sticky gun before they know what's happening. If they open fire and BB is feeling giggly, your Audra deck can deflect attacks. Sam can also get an adrenaline rush during those attacks that boosts his stamina regeneration, but afterwards it drops big time if we don't rest or drink from a canteen. Sneaking through long grass is a strategy that depends on how high your cargo is stacked, something that makes realism comical, but if you don't want to strip down, you can use the Audra deck to cover Sam in a holographic rock. The only issue there is Sam can't stealth attack if a bad guy comes sniffing around, and that guy will eventually see through the facade. That means that it's effectively useless as a stealth tactic. It's the North Star for how Death Stranding handles its enemies. Oodles of options, but those options are rarely intrinsic. Stealth takedowns don't relate to the context of where Sam is. There's only really one enemy type with varying health pools. The sticks sit awkwardly alongside the ropes. That makes for creative play. For example, you can plant a remote stun bomb next to that Audra deck hologram and fry enemies when they investigate. Bringing Mama to Mountain Knot City is a journey that does not encourage combat, so the smart route is to strap her to our back or the passenger seat of a truck and work around hostile territory.
If we're going to reconnect the world, I need to reconnect with my sister first.
Mama's heavy cargo, not because of her size, but because of the emotional weight that she carries. If the mountain won't come to Malingyan, Malingyan must come to the mountain. To do that, she has to sever the spiritual cord binding her to her child. The player is drawn in because the moment asks for participation. When she says she can feed the BT baby milk, it's hard to know how to take it. Is she speaking literally or from a place of grief? How does something without a body take nourishment at all? The question barely matters. The moment is too heartbreaking to pause and analyze. Because their souls are entwined, separating the child marks the beginning of Mama's own death. We carry her to her sister just in time. Once conjoined twins, Mama and Lochna share a connection that runs deeper than flesh. When Malingyan's soul fails to pass on, it settles instead within Lochna. They're reunited as they were before birth, returned to a single self. A long goodbye teaches us something important. In Death Stranding, consciousness and soul are two different things. There's peace in this reunion. The two women now share one body, but it still feels like a loss. The Cupid, the chiral network, and Lochna's new heterochromia remain behind. Quiet evidence that Mama once lived.
Okay, Sam. Let's go.
Hi, son. How's it going? You may know that I was not very close to my own dad, so we hopefully had a very different relationship, but that experience taught me a lesson that I think is applicable to life in general. Your life is your own, and your relationships are also your own. Nobody can tell you to love them, nobody can demand you respect them. Love and respect are a result of relationships formed between people. Being related by blood doesn't make you obligated to anyone. And I hope if you love and respect me, it's because of how I raised you and the bond we formed, and not just because we happen to have the same last name. I love you.
Episode 6 opens with every father's worst nightmare, a missing baby. Sam panics, the word Lou bursts out of his lips. He is officially named BB-28. Names have power in Death Stranding. It's why so many of them are on the nose. Thankfully, Lou wasn't missing. Deadman was checking up on her because something strange is happening. It seems that she's growing. Brain activity, development, it's all progressing like it would for a normal child, growing in the womb, all because of her affinity to Sam. That shouldn't happen. If she isn't reset, Deadman worries that it could get out of hand. Lou could die. That reset comes from separation. Sam needs to head out into a Lou-less world for a bit while Bridges recalibrates her with the conditions of her mother's womb. It should take about as long as needed for us to link up the next batch of shelters. That's convenient. It isn't until I was cut off from her that I realized how much Lou's bubbly background noise added to the feel of Death Stranding's world. Her laughter, cries, and especially her BT sensing abilities made the country feel less hostile. Without her, Sam feels very, very alone. As he rises up the lift, he instinctively tries to connect his Audra deck to her, frustrated when he realizes that she's gone. In the wilderness, he can call out to her or mutter to himself, "Hey, you okay? Oh yeah. Who are you without your partner in crime? All I can say is that before you, son, I thought I knew who I was. Turns out I was wrong." Death Stranding's thesis statement is the importance of connection, no matter the cost or form or foundation. That would later be pulled apart by its sequel, but here, the earnestness of that thesis is unmistakable. It's why the game keeps regularly tying loose concepts back to strands, knots, and connection imagery in our chats with pals or emails with preppers. At the end of the game, Sam will ultimately abandon Bridges, but he heads into a new life with a new connection in Lou, while leaving the door open to reconnect with friends like Fragile once again. Numerous forces, natural and supernatural, are working incredibly hard to keep the game's populations isolated, and the longer we play, the more that isolation grows into a powerful center that the game's atmosphere revolves around. Some of the preppers are victims of misinformation because they've been alone so long without a way to communicate with each other. Fragile's thought of as a terrorist because Higgs visited every shelter and lied to people so they wouldn't trust her. Chiralium is the 0 point for much of the game's science, and it's been released into the air following the Death Stranding. It can cause hormone imbalances and deep depression. It's why porters are supposed to travel in pairs. It's why everyone lives underground. It's not just BTs and void outs we need to watch out for, it's our mental health. One of Sam's first deliveries is a crate of oxytocin, something to keep Bridges staff sane while they fix the world. The books tell us that direct contact between external porters and Bridges staff is prohibited. It's not just because there's a risk of viral infections or malicious attacks by terrorists. The real reason is because once people became used to the small group who've isolated with them, the introduction of someone new could cause incredible stress. Heck, the corpse that kicks off the Capital Knot City void out is thought to have died from suicide. The air is telling the last of humanity to end it all. Hope comes from the fact we fight on anyway. We might be told we're trekking across America, but frankly, that is just a recognizable name that grounds the science fiction in the real world. The government might whip up a hologram of the Oval Office and have a president, but there's no sense of democracy. No Supreme Court, Congress, or Senate. Geez, Bridget dies and it's suddenly decided her daughter is next in line. There are no recognizable landmarks because the timefall has washed it all away. Sam doesn't pass the Hollywood sign or Mount Rushmore when he journeys west, and all of the cities have new geography-specific names that relate to a rope, not historical figures. Brooklyn's gone. Las Vegas has been eroded. Sam's final destination was once Santa Maria, but now it's Edge, not City. They're all just blank, not cities. That choice has a few meanings. They're knots on the rope that connects the chiral network, but they're also quite literally not cities with a lowercase n. They're shelters. The culture and bustle that makes a city a hometown has vanished. Now it's full of scared people clinging to the purpose that Bridges offers. In the novelization, Igor thinks that America has become God. It's breaking down into an abstraction, a set of ideas without basis in reality. If America as a setting isn't important, why did Kojima Productions not invent its own country? Why doesn't Die Hardman pop up in the comms and say, Sam, your job is to set up the chiral network to connect the people of Homeland? The honest answer is that would require a whole new branch of world building. What was Homeland like before the apocalypse? What language do they speak? What were the staples of their culture? A player would need to interrogate all of that while interrogating the science fiction concepts of BTs, BBs, and beaches. America simplifies things. The US means different things to different people, both good and bad, and the game doesn't pick a side. Fragile asks Sam what America means to him, and he struggles to answer, but for Die Hardman, it's about individuals coming together to form a greater community. For Bridget, it was about supposedly necessary sacrifice in the name of the greater good. For the Elder, it embodied xenophobia and a wall on the border of Mexico, something that implies Donald Trump was once president in this world. Instead of wrestling with these interpretations, the game asks us to imprint our America onto Sam's goal. It's a concept that stands for the idea of connecting a population under one banner. It's an idea that stands in opposition to the game's brooding, brutal isolation post-Stranding. That loneliness is so powerful that you feel sparks of warmth seeing any sign of human life. Way stations look like man-made metal caves built into the world. They're aesthetically cold, but the sound design is pleasing and warm, and the isolation outside makes them feel practically cozy. When out and about, there's only one type of person that doesn't want to kill Sam: fellow porters. We can hail them, trade cargo with them, and we'll even spot them using our structures. During some heavy timefall, I saw a pair huddled under a shelter that I'd built. No words are traded and no stories are told because Sam is a man who keeps everyone at arm's length. In doing so, it doesn't spoil that palpable sense of isolation. When we depart from Lake Knot City and see clanking industrial cranes swaying in the distance, it feels good because they're lit by small twinkling lights. Reminders that there are people trying to bring humanity back, same as us. There are people across the country working their asses off to make the world a better place. You don't need to see them to feel united in that purpose.
My father believed that the key to understanding the Death Stranding was hidden here, somewhere in the caves and strata.
The preppers walk an awkward tightrope. They only ever speak to us via chiralgram. Nobody ever invites us in for tea. It's been said as a form of criticism that many of them are nameless, known only for their titles and roles, like online avatars. The craftsman, the musician, the roboticist. Right now, Sam is on his way to the doctor and the medical device engineer. I find it an odd criticism because names wouldn't necessarily be more effective. The staff who work at the Bridges Centers all get names. Alex Weatherstone is in charge of the weather station. Philip North runs the mountain station, but I didn't remember them when the credits rolled. I did remember the mountaineer and the chiral artist. There's a purposeful detachment to how the preppers are handled, and it lends to the game's tone. The titles instead of names, the emphasis on chiralgrams. They're not accidents. They reinforce that important, isolated feeling that we get lost if we could pop in and high-five them. The issue is that they don't have particularly interesting stories, despite lathering Sam with emails. The junk dealer stands out because we see him in person and rescue his daughter. Whoops, nope, sorry, his wife, she's his wife, I keep forgetting that. The Elder is a grump with a story that depends heavily on gameplay. Often we'll be delivering medical supplies to him, but if you ignore him for enough time, he eventually dies, replaced with a BT. The Mountaineer is a prepper whose wife is about to give birth, but she has an infection. We need to go back and forth between them and the doctor to set up some tech that will help him facilitate the birth remotely. Because of the stakes the game has reinforced over and over about birth rates and complications during pregnancy, this does feel meaningful. Eventually, when the baby's born, they name it Sam. That's heartfelt, but the story is in the cargo that we carry, rather than their relationship to us. A lot of their functions revolve around finding the silver lining in the apocalypse. Chiralium might drive you mad, but there's a chiral artist who's taken something dangerous and turned it into art. Timefall is terrifying. It ages everything it touches, rusts people away, but hey look, a Timefall farm. A sprinkle of Timefall can grow crops at a crazy rate. They even make beer. When humanity returns, world hunger could be cured. Though, as Die Hardman says, famine has always been an issue of logistics and greed, not resources. The novelist's son lives in a bunker that's distinct. The entrance is full of books, hinting that he runs a misshapen library. The digital age has died, so physical literature is making a comeback. That stands out because the other prepper shelters are identical. It homogenizes them, and specifically takes away from the feeling that they're unique special snowflakes separate from the clean mechanical aesthetic of Bridges. I wouldn't need them to be dramatically separate, but the assets could at least be juggled around. The Spiritualist is a little kooky and mainly acts as a fresh perspective on the game's supernaturalisms. This mountain used to be a pyramid, she tells us with a twitching eye. Maybe she's right. That stands out because the Spiritualist is the most whimsical of all the preppers. Surprisingly, there's none of that Kojima-specific je ne sais quoi in the people Sam delivers to. Their performances and dialogue are dull. Generation Z would call them rizzless. I don't know what word your generation would use, but if you're looking for charm, you'll find it in just one place: the cameos.
I know what you're thinking. Is that an otter on my head, or am I just happy to see you?
Talk show host Conan O'Brien is married to a cosplayer. When we hook them up to the chiral network, he appears in an otter hat and for a full 5 minutes tells us how much he loves otters. The film director is Jordan Vogt Roberts, the guy who, once upon a time, was making a Metal Gear Solid movie. That's not important to the game though. What's important is that he lives in the center of a defunct volcano with awkward terrain. Why do you live in a volcano, buddy? The musician is Daichi Miura. He gives Sam a harmonica that cheers BB up because he can play See the Sunset on it. That's an odd choice. You heard Clifford Unger sing that once, Sam. How do you know it so well, How do you know Clifford's lullaby, Sam? Is that a clue to a big twist? Hey look, it's Sam Lake.
Time will tell if I'm a fool for doing so.
Wait a minute, that's not what Sam Lake sounds like. Jeff Keighley is even here, host of the Game Awards, set up as the #1 fan of a fictional game studio called Ludens. There is charm to see recognizable faces like this, even if the fact they're cameos has no bearing on the world. In a meta sense, they are friends of Hideo Kojima. He has used Death Stranding to connect the various people in his life. Jeff Keighley stands as another example of something that is annoying about the preppers though. A chunk of them are optional, but we can find their shelters while roaming the world. If we do, like I have with Jeff, we can't interact with that shelter unless we're fulfilling a delivery quest to that location. Some are unlocked through orders, others through lost cargo, but unless Sam is fulfilling a function, they have no interest in talking to him. Rude. A lot of the facilities are bouncing off the walls to see us. A fair response because we are going door to door turning on people's Wi-Fi for free. Sam isn't just carrying cargo, he's carrying hope. And while their cheer might start to feel a bit samey and bland, the earnestness remains. As we take on more orders and more cargo, leveling up our rank with each shelter, the preppers will start offering gifts. They're not all created equal though. Some will give us tech upgrades like a stronger Ebola gun, others hand over minerals or backpack charms that come with boons. Many give us tat, holograms that can stand outside structures that we build. Everyone, at one point or another, will give us lore. You never know what you're going to get, so it ingrains a sense that you're not in it for the extrinsic reward. You're in it for the intrinsic satisfaction of mastering a tough delivery. Some of the preppers are buttholes though, no two way about it.
Oh, you certainly aim to impress, don't you?
Oh, I hate you. The collector, especially, is incredibly stingy. I would show up with tons of cargo and he wouldn't cough up the likes needed to level him up. Give me 5 stars, you little toilet drinker. The like economy is unclear and sometimes quite frustrating. What's necessary for an upgrade varies from prepper to prepper. Some, like the veteran porter, just recycles the same handful of orders, so your deliveries stop feeling like missions that combat isolation and more like grinding just to get 5 stars. It gamifies these people, turning their humanity and loneliness into statistics.
I'm surprised. I thought you would have abandoned BB by now.
Discard precious hardware? Never.
Completing our time with the preppers, Deadman is finally ready to return Lou. He's seen the light. Time alone with a life so precious makes him doubt his belief that BBs are just a tool. He's holed up in a cabin nearby, but before Sam can reach him, another supercell tears the shack apart. Deadman, Sam, and Lou are thrown into another battlefield, World War II. Clifford Unger hunts again for the baby. Sam's reunion with Lou is coloured by the tension of another fight. Tanks roam stuffed with organs, dead fish and blubber. Whale corpses line the streets. Artillery fire and explosions guide us to a town square with a derelict church. Cliff can summon those skeletal soldiers to cover him, so they're a priority target. He's also had an upgrade, able to send rubbery umbilical cords out to attack Sam if we stay in one place for too long. The aesthetic of Cliff's zones reflect his character. World War I was industrialized dehumanization, a war where individuals were fed into meat grinders, ordered forward into machine gun fire, and reduced to numbers and uniforms. It represents the truth about Bridges' BB project. Later, Vietnam will appear, a level that emphasizes cat-and-mouse stealth. It represents Cliff's fury at being lied to, the sneak and deception of Bridges. World War II has a very specific part of the level that the novelization hones in on, a church and a town square with an unbroken point despite the damage at the bottom. It looks strange and unusual, it should collapse. It represents how the foundation of Cliff's world was shattered, but he kept focus on what mattered when the time came, the safety of his child. Just like before, it's thrilling and explosive, a complete contrast to the meditative feeling of solitary travel. It seems that Clifford believes Lou is his. How true is that? It's all my fault, he says. I never should have let you live in that prison. He's not just a spectre, it seems. Once, he was a father who lost his child. It's something that unites the two men. When we're returned to the real world, Deadman offers up a revelation.
A death, sudden, in the middle of a town. Young woman in the prime of her life. Nobody knew until it was too late. Avoid out.
Years ago, Sam had a wife called Lucy who died in Manhattan. Suicide. She was pregnant at the time and they were going to call the baby Louise. Her body necrotized, caused a void out, and the resulting political chaos led to Sam abandoning Bridges. It's implied they spun a yarn that put the blame for her death on him. No wonder he wanted nothing to do with them. And no wonder he's found it so easy to look past Lou's bridge baby status. Sam feels alone on his journey. That's partly because he carries a lot psychologically. The death of his wife and child is just the start. But that isolation is compounded by the fact we aren't regularly messaged by the cast. Sometimes Die Hardman will pop up with a quick hint as we leave a distribution center, but when we're lost in the mountains or navigating a forest, we don't get codec calls explaining the surrounding fauna. That stuff is saved for where he is now, the private room. It's our sanctuary from the apocalypse. Out there, Sam is defined by friction, but in here, with the door sealed, he's allowed to exist without being useful. No terrain to conquer, no cargo to balance. Just Sam at his happiest, alone, aside from the playful cooing of Lou. The The camera becomes another presence in the room, something he plays to rather than fights against. He pulls faces in the mirror, he points to things he wants to interact with, he goofs around, he breaks the fourth wall in a way that feels less like a joke and more like relief. This is the one place where Sam isn't performing resilience or competence, he's just letting go. The private room gives him something important. Me time, a chance to recharge. In life, it's how you give 100% to other people, and Sam gives more. The irony, of course, is that sometimes the private room isn't really private. We can come here voluntarily, tinker with our gear, listen to music, but the game also drags us back constantly. Most of Death Stranding's major cutscenes happen in this room. Bridges' staff pop in to dump lore, advance the plot, or remind Sam that even rest is something they're monitoring. It's a space framed as solitude, but never free from observation. Deadman pulls Sam into the shower to share that he's growing suspicious of Die Hardman. He suspects he's hiding something. The fact he feels the need to do that implies there are cameras in these rooms. Even though he's turned off the recorder and his cufflinks, he's worried that Bridges will read his lips. That tension is the point. Death Stranding might be about connecting, but it doesn't portray it as pure or clean. Even when Sam is alone, he's still connected to systems, watched by institutions, harvested for data and resources. Once you're hooked up, you can't truly unplug. The indulgence of the private room leans hard into that contradiction. Every interaction is part of a meticulous one-shot with long animations. The camera hardly ever cuts away, even when it probably should. Sam showers, he pees, he takes a big stinky poo while an advert for Norman Reedus' show plays on the wall. He chins energy drinks and I feel sick just watching him. Son, never drink energy drinks, they taste like fizzy medicine and hurt your heart. You can even get him drunk on beer, at which point he stumbles around and trashes the place. That's what you get for being greedy. It's peak Kojimism, excessive, and I love it. Every one of these actions reinforces how embodied Sam is. Everyone keeps bothering him to shower, not because he smells, though he can get pretty filthy, but because Bridges wants his fluids. Even moments of care are transactional. Shower water becomes weapons, blood becomes ammunition, waste becomes a resource. Even here, even now, Sam's body is still being turned into something useful for someone else. And yet, something deeply human slips through his isolation. Look at how Sam treats BB in this space. He talks to her, rocks her gently. His words and intonation become softer the more the pair bond. The private room becomes the place where the pair grow, away from the performance of survival. Customization plays into this too. You can change the color of your backpack, slap stickers on it, add batteries, grenade pouches, a jetpack that lets us leap off the peak of a hill and soar over crevices and boulders. It's self-expression wrapped up in logistics, a tiny assertion of identity in a world that is constantly trying to flatten you into a function. It's just a darn shame that changing the color of Sam's suit is locked until the endgame. The private room also houses one of the game's most telling compromises on connection: fast travel. Fragile can pull Sam through her beach to any shelter where the chiralium is thick enough. Instant movement, but you can't bring cargo and overusing it makes her do a frowny face. Connection without effort comes at a cost. You save time, but you abandon responsibility. Death Stranding never lets you forget that the road matters more than the destination. The room offers escape, but only in measured doses, and when nightmares invade it, we're reminded that the hardest part of surviving isn't the climb, it's what you carry with you when you finally get to sit down.
Tip 41. Kids, I worry a lot. I worry about the world you're rapidly growing up into, what you're inheriting from us, and whether I've done enough to break certain cycles. There is, however, one thing I don't worry about, and that's you two. You've both shown yourself to be brilliant, innovative, and resilient. In a sense, it doesn't matter what's coming because you can handle it. Even if I've not moved the needle enough, I know you'll pick up that baton and run with it, making things better for the generation after you. You've got this, and if you do slip, don't worry, me and your mum have your back.
Suffice it to say, 1 minute remaining. I don't have much time. See to your preparations. I'll be waiting.
No rest for the weary. Hartman wants us to bring him Mama's corpse. For some reason, she's not necrotizing, and he wants to know why. There's a tricky climb ahead, so let's pass the time by looking at the world design. Hey, this rhymes. If Death Stranding's America isn't America, what is it? The answer lies in music. Before the game was fully conceptualized, Hideo Kojima went to a gig by Iceland-based musician Low Roar. While there, he fell in love with the sound and sights of Iceland and thought the landscape suited a game set at the end of the world. In an interview with The Face, he said, "Every end of the world setting I saw was like crumbled buildings, grass growing over them. I didn't want to do that as a setting. I wanted a kind of newborn Earth. People might think they should leave the place alone, because the old planet Earth might not be as beautiful as a newborn planet." The breathtaking scenery is breathtaking because Timefall and Voidouts have turned America into Iceland, a country rocked by storms, historic volcanic eruptions, and battered coastlines. A newborn Earth that's washed away civilization in the span of 40 years maximum is hard to understand, but soon your comprehension doesn't matter. The rain has thrown us into a brand new tomorrow. Litter's not an issue anymore. Timefall washes it all away. It's one of the few benefits of the rain, and one of the ways Hartman sees a newborn Earth as an opportunity, not just a threat. The ruins of civilization are rarely seen. There's some brickwork in Capital Knot City, a few broken highways, wrecked cars and rubble, but that's pretty much the extent of it. It's all melted away, replaced with the natural world. It adds to the solitary feeling of Sam's journey, but it also means every obstacle is something wonderful to look at and engage with. Hartman believes that we perceive time differently now that the beach is bleeding into our world, a messy meta-explanation for why you can march across America in just over an hour. Sam is really walking for days. Gosh, the book implies that it's months, but that's not how the player perceives it. That small landmass, however, doesn't stop Death Stranding from feeling too samey. There is variety in what we tackle, in the hazards we face, and the way the terrain changes the further west we go. Lush forests, snow-capped mountains, an astonishing waterfall, barren volcanic terrain, it all blends into a cohesive whole. An America reset, ready to grow again into something better. What's wonderful is that the land isn't just out to get you, so you do feel free to explore. Lost cargo and minerals are mechanically useful because they unlock prepper shelters and help you build roads. Memory chips are scattered everywhere, and while they're mainly just a Kojimism, they also give us deep insight into our villain Higgs. Some of them unlock his journals. Hot springs are dotted around. They fully heal Sam, cheer up BB, and reset all of our stats. If you bathe in one while carrying someone, they'll bathe too. Here's Mama singing a song. That was when she was alive. She doesn't do that now. It's a world designed, not generated. Sometimes with the BT zones, that starts to feel a tad artificial, like you're looking past the land and seeing the code. But if you push beyond the dilution of monsters, you're faced with intimate moments of level design that test your tools and your skills. That means that every player will have their own stories unique to them. Where valleys lie, you can use a ladder or climbing anchor to venture below, but if you're feeling smart, you can use the sticky gun to pull cargo to you. Timefall is the game's most consistent threat, but it's also the one we're quickly armed against. Shelters can be built if we're in the chiral network, and container repair sprays on hand if you prepped for a quick scoosh. The opening tutorializes that we can hide in caves and wait it out, though in some areas, it never passes. These rest points are there to quickly repair your cargo, soothe Lou if she's stressed, and plan the route ahead. Weather forecasts can help us plan if we're really worried about it, a neat detail made even cooler by the fact that our map is diegetic. It's projected off Sam's cufflinks. However, Timefall won't ever be so dangerous that you need to avoid it altogether. Better to load up with repair spray than extend your journey unnecessarily. What's surprising is that there's no day-night cycle. The gloom of an evening or the rising sun of the morning would only emphasize how gorgeous Death Stranding looks and how different the terrain can be at certain times of day. It turns out that this is just one of those things that Kojima Productions couldn't get working on the Decima engine. Thankfully, they solved it for the sequel. Wind is a boon and a hazard. If it's behind Sam, it spurs him on faster. If it's ahead, blowing against him, it'll drain his stamina and might even tip him over if your cargo's piled too high. As Sam carries Mama's corpse, rock slides appear. Great big boulders come crashing down the mountain, forcing you to wait them out or play Frogger to push on. Vog is poisonous volcanic gas that shows up just a couple of times and frankly could be used more often to keep the tension. It's either in a deep crater near the film director or far to the west before Edge Knot City. It can wipe Sam's consciousness if you stay in it for too long, but shortly we'll unlock the oxygen mask. An incredibly useful tool that kills the threat of VOG, means we don't have to hold our breath in BT zones, and most importantly of all, lets Sam breathe easier when high up. The mountain is the game's greatest triumph of level design and its most difficult challenge to conquer. This was when I knew Death Stranding was one of my favourite games of all time because it is a fantastic spike that is needed after the flat terrain surrounding the distribution centres nearby. Reaching Hartman is one of the game's highlights for a few reasons. Vehicles are effectively useless, so you're forced to climb after over-relying on them to link the nearby shelters. Timefall snow is suddenly introduced, something that rots your tools much faster, so there's a sense of urgency to every tumble and fall. You don't want to end up stranded on the side of a mountain with no boots, no ladders, and no climbing anchor. The bitter cold automatically exhausts Sam, even if he's walking across a flat surface, so the friction is magnified. A thermal pad will eventually solve this at the cost of a cargo slot, but that's a long way off. After this agonizing trek, Hartman's lab winks over a horizon. It's fancy, more like a mountain penthouse than a bunker. Huge, shining windows show how snow has frosted delicately on the glass. A warm, crackling fire greets us. There's even a hot spring on the balcony. A strange, heart-shaped lake lies below, bitterly romantic considering the scientists' tragedy.
The ICU's backup generator kicked in, and I was brought back to life by the defibrillator. Exactly 21 minutes after my heart had stopped.
Hartman has dooms, but his powers are cursed. His heart is literally shaped like a heart, and every 21 minutes, he dies, sent to the beach before a defibrillator brings him back. Voidouts killed his wife and child while he was in the hospital. The power went out and he died too, but he was brought back by the hospital staff before he could join them. Dragged back to the world of the living while his family moved on. He's been to the beach 218,549 times. A quick bit of math says this has happened for almost 10 years, and every single time he searches the beach for his family. He doesn't want to bring them back. He wants to find them so they can all move on together. Another father robbed of his loved ones, trying to find purpose. In a twisted way, he's a repatriate like Sam. The only difference is he could die if he wanted to, he would just need to turn off the defibrillator. It's a depressing existence. He lives life in 21-minute bites. Meals are crammed down his throat. Sleep barely exists. He says that most of life's basic functions fit easily into a 21-minute time slot, but his soul's on the beach. He might as well already be dead. Hartman is the second person Sam empathizes with, the first being Fragile. He's lost his family too. To cope, Hartman's thrown himself into his work, collaborating with the past to inform the present, aiding in building a future. Death Stranding brims with obsessive characters, but Hartman stands as a warning. The biggest piece of advice I can give anyone is to find stuff that makes you passionate and never be embarrassed about those passions. But don't follow Hartman's lead. Don't make other people your only passion, because very quickly it becomes an obsession. I hope one day you fall in love, maybe form a family, a community, a safety net, and a house of joy, but if you make someone else your entire reason for existing, it puts pressure on them and erodes who you are. At the end of the game, Hartman will finally escape his obsession. He decides to give up his quest to find his family, seeing it as fruitless. They've moved on, so he does too, casting aside his obsession in favor of a healthier framework for his research. For now though, his focus is Mama. Her body didn't necrotize because the umbilical cord that we severed is still attached to her. It connects her body to the other side. Umbilical cords are the key to a massive theory he's working on about this newborn Earth. If we can connect some nearby scientists to the chiral network, he'll be able to tell us all about it. Unfortunately, there are no roads nearby, so this is going to be a trek. There's a risk with introducing vehicles to Death Stranding's meditative loop. They could make journeys trivial. Our intricate walking simulator could suddenly become a half-assed truck simulator. Hazardous terrain like wind or timefall could be relegated to minor inconveniences. Thankfully, none of that happens here for a couple of simple reasons. The first is that the world has been specifically crafted to disincentivize them. The route to the weather station is overrun with jagged rocks to get stuck in or wandering BTs that grind your ride to a halt, bogged down by sticky tar. The snow of the mountains make them skid and slip, and whiteouts occur, snowstorms that bring a gloomy mist that means you have to be careful in case you drive off the edge. There are thousands of basalt columns around the middle of the map, reminiscent of Northern Ireland's Giant's Causeway. Gaps are too tight to drive through and there aren't any ramps to drive over them, so unless you've built a road or bridge, you're screwed. Even with those roads, a lot of our preppers are far off the beaten path. The Elder, for example, lives at the top of a mountain. There's a great scene in the novel where Fragile's father says he's got a bad reputation because people hate climbing up here to deliver to him. In the endgame, you'll conquer these obstacles with zip lines, creating quick delivery routes from the road that whiz Sam off to where he needs to go, but that is a reward for mastering America. The second reason you can't over-rely on vehicles is logistic. It's a bigger target for mules who toss electric poles that shut it down, exposing you. The handling is loose and floaty, so they don't feel especially good to use. The physics are floppy. If you activate a boost while the vehicle is stuck, it might leap into the air and come crashing down in a heap. The batteries are mince unless you max out the necessary shelters to get an upgrade. Sam can steal mule and terrorist trucks, which is brilliant, but they're worse than the bridges ones because they basically die if you hit a river. And the truck bed doesn't have a roof, so your cargo isn't protected from timefall. You can't pick up Cairo crystals or lost cargo from a truck without stopping, lumbering over, and grabbing them yourself. You don't need to get off the trikes, but you do need to stop them. It's purposefully dissatisfying to find and harvest stuff from a vehicle because there's no swooshing slow motion and, unlike when Sam's running down the side of a hill, you lose all momentum. All of that is purposeful, and there is beauty in that purpose. This is a game about walking, about building various wacky tools like cargo catapults. The game doesn't want you to live in your car, it's why the roads are so expensive. If you want an easy, albeit dull life, you've got to earn it, and you earn it by wrestling with the game's interesting bits first. This line, however, is awful the first time and worse the 20th.
Hey, buddy. We're on electricity fire right now.
Cargo loads are unnecessarily unclear, messy, and frustrating. It's the same sort of jank we see with cargo management as a whole. Trucks have finite capacity, which is fair enough, but it's a nightmare trying to find out what that capacity is. Lights on the back will turn red if you're full, which is a fun detail, but it's too vague. It doesn't combine Sam's cargo capacity with the vehicles. It keeps them separate and doesn't tell you how much weight a truck can hold. That means it's confusing when the game says you cannot drive a truck because it's overloaded. Just don't let me put all my stuff in it if it's overloaded. It's too vague. What do I need to remove to get it going? At one point, I drove my truck until it ran out of battery, used a PPC on Sam's back to make a generator, and when the truck was charged, it suddenly said I couldn't get in because my cargo had gone over capacity. I just used a piece of cargo. I am lighter now than I was before. How am I suddenly over capacity, you confusing fudge nugget? In the name of the social link system, any trucks or trikes that you've made and are not using will sit in a communal garage. Once you unlock that garage, there will always be a vehicle on hand if you need it, free of charge. You can customize your truck's color, but that's it. No boosters to make it go faster, no extra batteries to make it last longer. It's purely cosmetic, and even then, the cosmetics are limited. Though, as a testament to how systems first the game is, if you stick the booster in Sam's backpack, it gives him more airtime on the trike. Whee! Vehicles are there to be used, abused, and abandoned, not something to cling to. It's why the options are so limited. Kojima Productions doesn't want you to fall in love with your vehicle and protect it at all costs. You're supposed to see it as just another tool. In the name of sharing with others, your best bet is to drive to the base of a mountain and then forget about it as you prepare your ladders, floating carriers, and climbing anchors. Just another knot on Sam's rope, not a crucial means of taming the wilds.
I've put together the bones of a theory. It's patchy, but worth sharing, I think.
Okay, son, lore dump time. This one's important. Deadman and Hartman have been conspiring. We don't just deliver Mama's corpse. Hidden in the body bag was a little jar with an umbilical cord belonging to the late Bridget Strand. She gave it to Deadman on the down low, insisted it was the key to solving the Death Stranding. Mysterious. While we've hooked up the scientists, Hartman has used that umbilical cord as the foundation of a new theory. This has all happened before. The Death Stranding is the 6th mass extinction event to hit planet Earth. Trilobites, ammonites, dinosaurs, they were all wiped out because an extinction entity emerged among them. Hartman claims that Bridget was an extinction entity. We'll soon learn that this is only half true, but her umbilical cord is perfectly preserved because it's somehow connected to the beach. That's something she has in common with previous extinction entities. Every single one had an umbilical cord that tethered them to the other side. But here's the kicker. Only mammals have umbilical cords, right? How did a dinosaur have one? An ammonite? Hartman believes that these spiritual cords, these strands that connect our souls to the beach, have always existed. Mammals simply evolved to have physical ones that helped with childbirth. It's humanist in perspective. 6 extinctions have happened, and it seems ours is the first one that didn't work completely. The Death Stranding is unfinished because thousands of people are still alive. Those extinctions forced life to evolve to the point human beings became the dominant species on the planet. We haven't just adapted to survive, the argument could be that we've thrived. In the midst of our current apocalypse, isn't that what we're doing? Using a cataclysmic event to form something miraculous in the chiral network. Certain people in the population have developed bizarre abilities through traumatic incidents. Just look at Hartman and Sam. Both can come back to life. Newborn humans for a newborn Earth. Now, the true foundation of the chiral network makes the word thrive pretty icky in context, but we'll talk about that later. What does all of this mean for the beach? Something that's been hammered home over and over again is that the beach is unique to humans. Did dinosaurs have a beach? Did ammonites? Our scientist friends uncover a fossil beach that seems to suggest as much, but Hartman claims that only humans have a beach. It's important to remember that some of his theories are wrong. Contrary to his claim, the chiral network is dangerous. We will later learn that it could end all life as we know it. When he says only humans have a beach, there's every chance he means only humans have a beach now. How does the universe decide what species has a beach and what doesn't? Perhaps it's just because we're the highest evolved consciousness on the planet, just like how the Iceman was the highest evolved consciousness during his extinction event. Perhaps the current extinction entity determines what creature gets a beach. One thing we know for sure is that Death Stranding's entity is human. Maybe she connects us. If humans are the only ones connected to the beach, I don't think that undoes the rules of this universe. Sam's late wife Lucy argued that the beach was a construct of the mind. Clifford Unger's beach is given form because of his furious death and how it's thrashed into the furious deaths of other soldiers. One of the things that make human beings unique is our imagination. Perhaps the beach is just a construct of the collective unconscious. A waiting room that lets us make sense of the afterlife. It's messy, confusing, riddled with contradictions and convolutions. Hopefully I'll be able to keep up the illusion that I know everything as you grow older, but if I can't, this is as good a place to learn that as any. Sam barely follows Hartman's logic himself, but he puts 2 and 2 together. Higgs seemed to imply that Amelie is an extinction entity. Maybe that's why he wants her. In his frenzy and thirst for the end of the world, maybe he wants to end what's left by using her somehow. Let's find out. Next stop, Edge Knot City.
No matter what you do or how well you do it, there will always be someone out there trying to pull you down. It won't matter how hard you try, you can't make them like you and you can't make them kind. I wish I could just tell you to ignore them, but it's never really that easy. So it's okay that it'll get to you. It's okay that it hurts. Focus on the people who lift you up instead. Make time for them and lift them up too. Those are your people. They're the ones who matter. And one day if you look around and it seems like they're all gone, you'll still have me.
I want to talk about pizza. As Sam tracks across America battling monsters, hugging Lou tight, covered in sweat and blood, he gets a stuffy, verbose email. "My dear Mr. Sam Bridges," it says, "it is an honor to make your acquaintance. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Peter Englert. After hearing so very much about you, all good I hasten to add, I simply could not resist the urge to initiate a correspondence. My request is of such great import that I dare entrust it only to the man who delivers. My sister, bless her heart, has been feeling under the weather, and I fear there is only one thing that might restore the colour to her cheeks. Pizza." Peter Englert is a doo-doo head. He sits in a bunker to the north, a mile away from where a massive void-out once took place, and he keeps ordering pizza. There's always an excuse. A sick sister, a dying father, some apparent context that makes the pizza seem important. As deliveries are made, he starts to get more picky, asking for precise toppings or, in one case, ordering a bottle of champagne to go with it. That champagne is at South Knot City and needs to be carried by hand, so we need to travel from the bottom of the map to the top without a vehicle. Thank God for the speed skeleton. We never meet him. He's always got some reason to be out and about when we deliver the ruddy thing, and even if you bring the pizza untouched in record time, he offers a tiny amount of likes. If you want to connect him to the chiral network, you need to complete every single pizza. It's the end of the world! Once you do just that, Peter's bunker opens up, and we see that he is insane. Obsessive scrawls on the wall call Sam a loser. Photos taken from afar suggest stalker behavior. A pharaoh's mask sits ominously on a desk. Peter Englert was Higgs all along. He's been trolling Sam.
Poor, sweet Amelie. She's holed up in the beach nearby.
Higgs has beaten us to Edge Knot City. It seems he's been looking for Amelie too. Strange, because it's been heavily implied Homo demons were the ones who took her hostage. Has Amelie been lying to us? He kicks Sam into the dirt, but leaves us to connect the final distribution center. The completion of the chiral network is all part of his plan. Sam's assumption was right. Higgs wants to bring about the end of the world, complete the Death Stranding. In a game about hope, he stands as the antithesis to that, representing a bleak contrast to what all of our characters are fighting against. Son, he is a charismatic, dancing warning against a philosophy called Ephilism. It's a fringe, internet-led belief system that believes all life is suffering, so we should just get it over with and slowly start to phase out existence. It's quite literally the word life, but backwards. Ooh, very edgy. Just like its big brother, antinatalism, its biggest issue is it puts a lot of philosophical weight on life's awful bits and zero philosophical weight on the wonderful bits. It clings onto how we use babies as monster hunting tools while ignoring our ability to find beauty in a rainbow. To be an Ephilist, your outlook needs to tip the scales unfairly. It's important that we make that distinction because, contrary to popular belief, Higgs isn't a nihilist. The face of nihilism, Friedrich Nietzsche, saw what happens when traditional sources of meaning collapse. Religion loses its authority, moral certainty erodes, the country you belong to turns into Iceland. But importantly, Nietzsche didn't advocate nihilism, he just diagnosed it. He thought it was a transitional illness, a necessary stage where people realize that the meanings they inherited no longer hold. The danger wasn't that people would realize life lacked objective meaning, it was that they would stop there. To Nietzsche, giving up after that realization was weakness. He believed the next step was creation, making values. Taking responsibility for meaning instead of outsourcing it to the universe. In a way, Higgs does take responsibility for meaning, but he doesn't create, he destroys. That's the distinction that moves him away from nihilism and into Ephilism. He keeps telling us he's seen the truth. He talks like someone who flicked to the end of the book first and decided there was no point reading the rest. The ending's fixed, the damage is done. Everything between now and then just feels like busy work. Building roads and bridges doesn't make sense to him. Carrying something for someone you'll never meet feels useless when extinction is already in motion. Effort starts to look theatrical and hope starts to look like denial. And I get why that thinking is tempting. I really do. This is a hard world. You can walk for hours through rain that eats time itself, deliver medicine across a mountain, and still arrive too late. Death Stranding is very good at teaching you that the universe doesn't bend just because you tried, but we still have to try. Otherwise, we'll end up just like Higgs. In the book, Higgs is baffled by Sam's belligerence. He wonders why we don't understand him, why we don't see things from his perspective. The answer obviously lies in connection. All Sam wants is Amelie. He doesn't really care about understanding the Death Stranding. The game isn't quite saying that ignorance is bliss, he never discards a mystery, but it is a pure value. Through mysterious journals, we learn Higgs was shaped by a childhood full of containment and fear, raised by an uncle who taught him that closeness comes at a price. People disappoint you. Caring just gives the world more ways to hurt you. That lesson settled in early. Higgs' uncle beat him and eventually, he killed him in self-defense. The moment wasn't meaningful or redemptive, it was chaotic and permanent. Death suddenly stopped being abstract. The beach reached out, dooms followed, and he was left uneasy and out of step. So, Higgs did what we all should do when life throws a harsh wind our way. He kept moving. Specifically, he became a porter. His journals don't necessarily feel like diary entries or declarations. They're the most human Higgs sounds the entire game. They are conversations with himself. He talks about helping people, the importance of community. He wonders if helping strangers still counts when the feedback loop is broken. He pushes back against the voice he grew up with. But repetition and loneliness wear people down. You can do everything right and still fail. You can help and never see the result, just like when we send likes to dozens of invisible players. You can build something and never know who used it. Eventually, doubt starts to feel more realistic than hope. It's kindling for Ephilism. And then, Amelie entered Higgs' life. Through the nightmares that Doom sufferers have, Higgs slowly came to understand the true nature of the Death Stranding. Extinction entities, the beach, the chiral network, cycles. Amelie gave his exhaustion a framework. Suddenly, suffering gained a reason. The future narrowed into something predictable. For someone already tired, that kind of certainty is comforting. Trying begins to feel unnecessary. Resistance starts to look childish. Ending things quickly feels cleaner than dragging them out. That's why he wrote an equation on his face. It's the formula for the Higgs field, the thing that gives matter mass. The reason particles slow down enough to stick together. Without it, nothing holds. Higgs carves that into himself because he wants to believe that he's serving a function. That by accelerating the end, he's being honest, mathematical. That stripping meaning away is a kindness. And this is where I want you to pay attention, son. Anti-human philosophies like antinatalism and ephilism sound smart when you're tired. They sound like clarity, like you've seen through the illusion everyone else is still chasing, but all it really does is give you permission to stop walking. I mean, look at what it gives Higgs in return. He stops building or helping. He stops creating anything that lasts. Instead, he takes, parasitically. He needs the chiral network for his plan to come to fruition, but he doesn't help Sam build it. In fact, at numerous points, he hinders our journey for farts and giggles. All of that energy turns inward. His world gets smaller. His bunker fills with taunts and surveillance photos. His sense of purpose narrows to provoking one man into responding. The philosophy that promised freedom leaves him stuck. Sam becomes the problem because Sam keeps going without needing a reason grand enough to justify it. One step after another. Cargo delivered, road extended, no certainty required. That persistence unsettles Higgs, and so he performs. He talks past Sam and glares at the player, breaking the fourth wall.
I'm not talking about the death of a few dozen species, no. This is the granddaddy of them all.
80% of our cards are on the table now. With the chiral network complete, Higgs grabs Amelie and pulls her down on Edge Knot City. A giant BT, just like the one that ate Igor at the start of the game, comes crashing into view. Amelie is trapped inside. Higgs has used his powers to unlock the extinction entity inside her, and she confesses everything. She will merge all of mankind's beaches to a single shore, and the last stranding, extinction number 6, will be complete. It's her purpose. The Death Stranding was nothing more than a prelude to what comes next. Happy bleeping doomsday. Giant BTs are an enigma. They're made up of numerous souls, all combining into one entity. Why they do that is unknown in universe, but the real reason is so that Higgs can give us a big old boss battle. It's the best BT fight in the game. After seeing it at the start, crackling through a storm, finally fighting one feels epic because of the size alone. Amelie is lost inside, barely conscious, but having Higgs pilot it shows his might. In a lot of ways, it's reminiscent of Metal Gear Solid 5's Sahelanthropus. The difference is in the feeling. That boss had a wide open area. You could run for miles. Tanks and air support were on hand if Snake wanted to use them. This is more claustrophobic, slower paced. The comparison, however, is still apt, considering Higgs loves to reference the video game of it all. Time for a good old-fashioned boss fight, he says. Game over. This is what you wanted, right? He's echoing a voice he assumes we all share, a voice that betrays Hideo Kojima's belief that trekking across America wouldn't translate to his core audience. Higgs acknowledges the impatience, the desire for spectacle, the wish for something loud enough to end the quiet. He offers interruption and calls it meaning, and if you're like me and you like Death Stranding's quiet, it never holds. If Sam can keep going without pretending the ending will justify the journey, then giving up wasn't wisdom, it was just giving up. And finally confronting the particle of God reinforces that with sweat-soaked, blood-drenched fists.
Why delay the inevitable? Those of us with dooms, her, we're all bound here for a reason.
The giant BT crumbles away. Sam searches the rubble for Amelie, but Higgs beats him to it, holding her hostage. Cackling, he opens fire on Sam and Lou deflects each shot with the Odra, forcing Higgs to retreat to Amelie's beach. With the help of Fragile, Sam follows, and the Metal Gear comparisons continue. Stick versus rope. Gun versus strand. If you die on the beach, you die in real life. Higgs has lost all sense of philosophy by this point. Strip away the theater and the powers, and what you have is a pathetic shadow of what a man can be. He starts babbling and mumbling while a mailman beats the snot out of him, his belief system rendered into a moment. What's great about battling Higgs is that even when it goes full spectacle, it still plays off the cargo mechanics at the center of Sam's journey. Higgs' gun can slice us in two, so it's all about cover, cargo, and parrying with Sam's rope. We beat him by lobbing boxes at his head. When the 1v1 brawl happens, it harkens back to Metal Gear Solid 1 and 4, but we need to watch our balance and use the trigger buttons to block, all using the same buttons that secures Sam's packages. It's poetic, even if it's not mechanically tricky. That poetry is why Higgs matters to me and why I wanted you to meet him. He's disappointment hardened into a worldview, and life will offer you that shortcut more than once. It'll tell you that nothing matters, so why bother trying? It'll dress that idea up as realism, and it will feel comforting in the moment. Don't take it. Meaning isn't something you discover fully formed. It's something you make, badly, slowly, with other people, and often without thanks. Fragile is thankful when she joins us, planning to take her revenge. Higgs' chapter is a whirlwind of catharsis, an explosive finale that's not a finale, scarred by the clunkiest dialogue in the game.
I brought you a metaphor.
Fragile goes back to the world of the living, leaving Sam and Amelie a moment to catch their breath and digest. This isn't over. Even without Higgs, she's an extinction entity, a walking time bomb. Why does she seem so pained? There's more to be resolved here. There's a bizarre moment where Sam, betrayed and confused about how his journey's ended, mutters, "So I'm Mario and you're Princess Peach. What do we do now?" His voice drips with frustration. It's delicately handled as a line, but what isn't delicately handled is Amelie's earnest, breathless response.
Like Mario and Princess Peach.
This jarring moment is followed by an emotional slow-mo run along the beach together. It's supposed to paint them as two siblings back during more carefree days, but the goofiness is clunky because the intention is lost. Why do I like this game again? A path paved with mysteries is laid out as the chapter closes. The pair race over a ridge, and when they reach the top, Amelie is gone. Sam's confused. Is this just dream logic rushing up to meet him again? Or is something else happening? Down below stands Die Hardman and Bridget Strand. He's shaking, angry, pointing a gun at her. The two seem to be arguing. "There is no atonement," we hear her say. "Not for us." Every beach feeds into here now, so Clifford Unger and his soldiers wash up on shore. Die Hardman recognizes Cliff, but Cliff's focus is Bridget. "Give me back my BB, he growls. Sam is thrown back into the real world before we can learn more.
I hope you know that I am proud of you, and that I will always be proud of you. Every single day, I will be proud of you. But I'm not foolish enough to think that there won't be days when you are not proud of yourself. And I know that because there are days when I'm not proud of myself. But when you're having one of those days where you're not proud of the person that you're being, I want you to remember two things. First, I am always proud of you, and I will always love you, no matter what you are doing. And second, you can always choose to be better. You can always choose to do better. Just because you screwed up today doesn't mean that you're a screw up. It doesn't mean you have to keep screwing up. You can always do better. You can always be better. Also, unrelatedly, always vote yes on bond measures. It's pretty much always the government asking if they can fundraise to do something cool for the community. There's really no downside.
Everyone has rallied back at headquarters and needs Sam to return. Fragile can't teleport us because it's not safe to move through the beaches anymore. Amelie is preparing her last stranding, and the chiral network is on the fritz. It's a lot of convolution for what ultimately boils down to this being a video game, and we need to do one big bit of gameplay before the finale. Good thing then that heading back east is powerful. The sky becomes overcast, timefall pours constantly, and BT areas immediately spawn bosses. Worst of all, a lot of our structures are rotting away. We need to rely on social links and past use of the chiral network to push on. Thank God I built all those roads. The chiral network was the key to Amelie's plan. Mama and Lochna were right to be worried about the chiralium because with every shelter connected, the physical world's connection to the beach has grown. It's now so dense that Amelie can reach anywhere. Thousands of void outs all at once. It's a twist anyone could see coming. Amelie's been acting increasingly erratic. Numerous characters tell us she's up to something long before she finally confesses. With the exception of Lochna, every prepper is extremely gleeful about the chiral network, so it raises suspicions. Nothing is that clean in this game. There's a tragic irony here. The network represents human ingenuity, the unique quality that's let us survive this long and let society evolve past the Death Stranding. But in trying to triumph over the apocalypse, we've handed Amelie the keys to end everything. But here's a question. Even if the chiral network didn't accelerate the apocalypse, is it worth all the effort? Death Stranding 1 released at the end of 2019. A few months later, in 2020, the world shut down because a virus swept across the globe. People died. A lot of people. National lockdowns meant we had to stay at home. I lost my job. Your mother, your granny, and your granddad were all on the front line, either working on a vaccine or treating people in hospitals. They nearly worked themselves to death. Speaking to Wired in 2025, Hideo Kojima said something really interesting about that pandemic. It's a long quote, but a good one, so stick with me. We survived the pandemic because people could connect online. Now, there are people who work for our studio from home and whose faces I don't even know. I understand that it was inevitable during the pandemic, but you turn on the TV and everyone was talking about how we were in the metaverse era, where there was no need to physically interact with people. I thought we were going in the wrong direction. Communication between human beings shouldn't be like that. You meet people by chance and see unexpected things. With the path we were on, all of that would be lost. The impact of isolation can't be underestimated. The University of Edinburgh found that psychological distress has risen to 29% in the UK population compared to pre-pandemic levels. Ask most people about 2020 and they'll scratch their head. There are generational gaps in our memory because it was so traumatic. Attainment gaps widened in school children because Zoom calls simply aren't a substitute for in-person teaching. We are social creatures. We're not built psychologically to be separated. And after Death Stranding preached the power of the internet to bring us all together, we lived through a real-world event that showed living online isn't enough. It also doesn't help that the internet lets bad actors like Peter Englert/Higgs hide behind a keyboard. What's important to note is that Death Stranding does not say the chiral network is enough. Chiral printers are set up in each bunker, and that's fast, efficient, cool, but Sam, a human, is necessitated constantly because there's stuff that simply can't be printed. It's like he said at the start of the game, the chiral network can print anything, so long as it doesn't have a soul. The game gives us a world where even in the apocalypse, human beings are necessitated. But what if that wasn't the case? Death Stranding's portrayal of machines is surprisingly optimistic for what the reality is. We learn that in the past, robots and drones took over deliveries and customer service work, but it was rejected by the masses, so governments had to reintroduce so-called useless jobs just to keep the human element. Look around, son. That's not what's happening. Self-service checkouts have killed interaction in shops. The high street is dying, though my conspiracy is that the culling of menswear shops has contributed to that big time. Drones deliver packages you ordered online. You're lucky if you get to even smile at the mailman. Social batteries are discussed a lot post-COVID, but where's the work needed to level them up? Human interaction is like a muscle. It needs to be trained for you to be good at it. Where are the government initiatives that bring the human element back to everyday tasks? Bridges repeatedly tells us that we shouldn't be worried about drone syndrome because robots can't become sentient. They don't have a beach. This is a world built around IA, intelligent automation, not AI, artificial intelligence, so don't get your knickers in a twist, buddy. But sentience isn't what drone syndrome is. What it actually is an over-reliance on automation, something that today is rapidly accelerating, and in 2040, I worry is going to be much, much worse. In the mountains, the Doctor wonders if the chiral network is really in our best interest. Once people are free to live hundreds of miles apart from one another with all their needs catered for by the chiral network, what incentive do they have to meet, interact, or socialize once the monsters are gone and society rebuilds?
Which skill should I upgrade first?
It really depends on your playstyle. If you're looking for an AoE blast, Weaver's Bliss is the way to go.
Oh good, Xbox can burn down a forest and devour all our water, so Susan here doesn't have to engage her brain to choose her first skill point. Amazing comment. It's a balancing act that the game struggles to make work, because the biggest praise everyone tosses at intelligent automation and generative AI is how they can remove mundane tasks. But Death Stranding's gameplay is a meditation on how important mundane tasks are. Bridges can send robots out to deliver cargo on our behalf, but it's limited to side missions, they barely work unless you built roads, and the deliveries themselves are basically worthless. You can't maximize your star settings, likes are minimal, and Sam's stats don't improve as a result. But the quality of these tools isn't what makes them an existential threat. Our over-reliance on them is. People are what's important, not the tools. And London Bridge indeed comes falling down when that philosophy is applied to the BB program.
I thought I could save the BBs, I really did. But there's no stealing back a stolen life, is there?
In the director's cut, a series of side quests are introduced that flesh out Fragile's history, Bridges' moral corruption, and the BB units. Die Hardman asks us to infiltrate an underground base to retrieve some data, but what we find is haunting. Broken Stillmother pods lie abandoned among the wreckage. Deactivated BBs are smothered by debris. The BB program was first commissioned by Bridget Strand to learn more about the beach. Babies that were inside Stillmothers wouldn't die if they were removed and placed into pods, but they wouldn't grow either. Bridges was saving them while capitalizing on their ability to exist in two worlds at once. But soon, the program expanded and ethical boundaries collapsed. Bridget Strand eventually decided that the chiral network needed to be created, and to facilitate that creation, BBs were used. Porters were tricked into transporting babies to various distribution centers around the country. Because of their connection to the other side, those babies would serve as connecting nodes on the network. Human sacrifices, used up like batteries, just so Bridges can have its internet. The logistics are never explored. Is there a chamber in each center where the baby sits, plugged into the chiral network via Ethernet cable? But they don't need to be to understand the horror of what Bridges did. There's a dark theory that revolves around the nursery rhyme, London Bridge is falling down. Dead Man explains it to Sam, but it originates from Alice Gom's 19th century work, The Traditional Games of England, Scotland and Ireland. The theory goes that the song is about human sacrifice. Verses list different materials used to keep London Bridge up: wood, clay, gold, silver, eventually settling on a watchman. Gom suggested that the watchman was a sacrifice, built into the foundations to prevent the bridge from collapsing. Becoming a dad has shown me that all nursery rhymes are a little bit dark. Ring Around the Rosie could be seen as documenting a deadly plague. Rockabye Baby ends with a cradle tumbling to the ground with a baby inside. London Bridge is a fun and disturbing reading of a classic nursery rhyme. Nothing more. Right? Whoosh! Here comes BBC News to make things a little funky. In 2007, builders excavated old tombs beneath London Bridge. They found skeletons. Some of the skulls had holes in their heads. Suddenly, the fact Amelie keeps singing London Bridge takes on a new meaning. Just like in the story, Bridges is built on a foundation of human sacrifice. Fragile's mother, a woman called Coffin, learned about this and led a resistance group, trying to expose Bridges and save the babies. As she puts it, Bridges wants to build a new America on the bodies of murdered children. She was killed fighting for those who couldn't fight for themselves. To hammer the tragedy home, Sam eventually emerges from this base and sees a BT hovering over a graveyard of children. It's brutal beauty in a shot. It puts the BBs at the center of the game's narrative. Contrary to what everyone keeps telling Sam, these are children, not tools. But it's also bizarre in its framing. It's not treated like an earth-shattering revelation. In fact, if you're paying attention to the emails and interviews, you'll learn about all of this long before you see it. Armed with that knowledge, Sam never confronts Die Hardman about it to find out what he thinks. He doesn't reach out to Fragile to tell her the truth about how her mother died and what she stood for, even though he knows for a fact that this was all kept secret from her. It's also a revelation drowning in retcons, retcons for those retcons, and retcons for the retcons that turn out to not actually be retcons. It's the Hideo Kojima way of writing. Red herrings that lead to more red herrings before everything gets tied up with a big fat lore dump bow at the end. Typically, that's something that can bring an air of mystery and wonder to his grand conspiracies. Just look at the end of Metal Gear Solid 3. But here, it's a tonal mess that buries the lead. There are two layers to Death Stranding's storytelling: the truth and the lies that everyone tells. Amelie lies, Die Hardman lies, Bridget lies, Deadman's origin keeps changing because he's embarrassed about it. Bridges, as an organization, tricks Sam into smuggling cargo he's not aware of twice. Lou and Bridget's umbilical cord. It's the same sort of deception Higgs played with when he tricked Fragile into smuggling weapons and bombs. The truth matters in Death Stranding. Deceit is never framed as a necessary evil, so the revelation that the chiral network is built on a foundation of human sacrifice needed to be handled with more emotional weight, and it needed to involve reactions from its cast. The BB program is arguably the game's greatest misstep. It's so monstrous that, frankly, Bridges loses its moral center and the chiral network becomes its disgusting legacy. It stains the earnestness and sincerity of connecting the country, because if this is the price of connection, then the people should stay underground and let the timefall wash it all away. How many children were sacrificed so the cosplayer could get some sewing needles? How many people know the truth? Why isn't anyone doing anything about it? Sam's response to Bridges, to Lou, to the very concept of a BB unit will eventually make me cry in the game's closing minutes, and the power of that moment does soften the blow here. But before he gets there, I'm ready to storm a distribution center with a very lethal assault rifle. And the game seems to just say, yeah, messed up, isn't it? Anyway, back to fighting a ghost in World War II or whatever.
Baby, we're getting out of here. I promise.
As we power on to Capital Knot City, one last storm sweeps Sam and Lou into a confrontation with Clifford Unger. Our setting is Vietnam. What better place for us to learn about the betrayal of Bridges than a war the US government had no business being in? The Metal Gear comparisons continue with this fight. The lush forestry, creeping through foliage, battling a superpowered soldier with a tragic past. It smells like Snake Eater. We're encouraged to focus on stealth here because the area doesn't have much physical cover, but there's plenty of tall grass. There are even custom stealth takedowns for strangling Cliff soldiers. Their skulls pop gratuitously. This final interaction between Sam and Cliff is heartbreaking on a second playthrough where we understand his story completely. He takes his dog tags and places them around Sam's neck. A very human moment of connection, far away from the chiral network. Sam relents and gives Cliff what he wants, the chance to hold his baby. A look of understanding crosses Cliff's face, fleeting and uncertain, and as he reaches out to hug Sam, bang, he's gone. We're thrown back to the present to finish our journey.
I'll talk to her. Maybe she'll listen. But with the shape the world's in, it'll only be delaying the inevitable.
All of our friends are together in person for the first time in the game. Die Hardman was spat back into the real world. He's fragile, but recovering. Fragile herself is weak from jumping too much, but she knows the clock's ticking. Amelie's beach exists on a higher plane than the others, like a heart that's pumping blood to the rest. The issue is that once Sam arrives, he won't be able to leave unless his sister wills it. Two options lie ahead: the stick or the rope. If he kills her, he'll save the world, but be stuck on the beach forever. If he somehow is able to talk her out of the last stranding, she might let him return. Bidding farewell, he asks Deadman to look after Lou. The kid's not ready for a lore dump this size.
Tip 39. Enjoy the process of discovering who you are. You might as well, because you will be doing it your whole life. If you are lucky, you will experience moments where everything aligns and you feel you have you figured out. But they will be fleeting. You are not meant to be solved. You cannot know who you are forever. And this is a gift. It means you are free to try things, to make mistakes, and change your mind. Labels, relationships, even things, no, especially things that can feel unquestionable. Sexuality, gender, or the name chosen for you, to name a few. Some things will be short-lived, some may last decades, some may not change at all, but you will appreciate them more knowing they can. You will surprise yourself, and that is wonderful and everything.
Grief is heavy. For generations, people have found ways to keep on keeping on because if they didn't, the weight of that grief could crush everything underneath it. It's why we built systems that help contain it. Procedures, rituals, quiet rules. You go to a wake, you visit a graveyard where the bodies are neatly arranged and organized. If you're lucky, someone else has already worked out what happens next. You just follow the steps and keep going. If everything works out the way it's supposed to, son, one day you'll have to bury me or your mother alone. When I die, your mum will hopefully be on hand to help, but when her time is up, you'll need to figure out those steps without us. It's important to remember that you won't be alone, and if you feel like you are, look to the infrastructure of grief to help you. There are rules and procedures and rituals that make it all a little bit easier. It's why people find religion, and if they don't have religion, there are dozens of philosophies that have rituals to help. Death Stranding understands this instinctively. Here, death has very important rituals associated with it. The body must be incinerated. Ancient cultures understood this too. They rewrote the essence of the universe and built rituals to help comprehend death. Amelie is the embodiment of the grief infrastructure.
The last stranding has already begun. A seam has formed from my beach and the beaches of every soul in America.
Amelie's a very complicated monster. When she learned she was an extinction entity, she could barely comprehend what it meant. Plagued by nightmares heralding her role in the end of the world. From the beach, she sent those nightmares out to everyone, hoping they could make sense of them for her. Those with dooms suffered on her behalf, but eventually she found clarity. She understood what she was supposed to do. End everything so that life can evolve once again, just like the 5 previous extinctions. But she's not just an entity. She's a person as well, stuck on the beach where time has no meaning. She's been waiting here for what feels like a millennia, trying to stop the apocalypse, but after aeons, she's tired. Tired of being alone, tired of waiting to activate the inevitable. She wanted to just get it all over with, execute mass extinction early. To do that, she needed to trick Sam into connecting the chiral network. One small issue though. By tricking Sam, by watching him connect with Lou, gather a group of friends, renew his faith in humanity, she grew even more uncertain about her role. It's ironic. She put a plan in motion to destroy all life, and that plan made her conflicted. She's a creature fighting her programming. She tells Sam that she wants him to be here to witness the end. Let humanity's flame be snuffed out immediately. But the choice is his. If he tries to kill her, she won't stop him. Look, she's even kept Die Hardman's gun to make things easier. Start of the game, Sam would have chosen option 1, stay with Amelie on the beach and witness the end. End of the game, Sam is a different man. He's got responsibilities now. Lou is waiting for him. The player is expected to make a choice. Shoot Amelie or hug her. Hold her close, connect with her. And of course, option 1 does nothing. The bullets go right through her. She walks into the waves and activates the apocalypse. Didn't the game teach you anything? Violence isn't the answer. The rope over the stick, every single time. In reality, that hug is all Amelie needs to make her decision. Eventually, she'll need to activate the last stranding, but because Sam has found a new purpose, because he damns her to another millennia here alone, she holds off. All in the name of love. Hurt, but with her decision made, she pushes Sam out of her beach and onto his own. Now alone himself, he's left to wander into infinity. Credits roll as he jogs along the beach, the first of a few endgame fakeouts. He's made his choice, the ultimate self-sacrifice to save everyone. More visions from Amelie are all that keep him company.
Mama is French for soul. A soul that's a lie.
Her name translates to a soul that's a lie, but it's even more on the nose when taken phonetically. Amelie, I'm a lie. See, Amelie is technically 3 beings wrapped up in one. The extinction entity, typically seen in black, Amelie herself, seen in red, and Bridget Strand, Sam's mother, seen in white. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay, let me explain this in a way you'll understand. Bluey is a show that you and I both love, son. You do a little dance when the theme tune plays, it's adorable. It follows a family of dogs as they navigate life's challenges, centering on a girl called Bluey, her little sister Bingo, her mother Chili, and impossible to live up to role model for dads, Bandit. To Bluey, Chili is just mum. She's the one who packs lunches, sets rules, and keeps the house running. But then there's also Chili the playmate, the one who becomes a dancer, a shopkeeper, or a horse at a moment's notice. Same voice, same love, same core person, but experienced in 2 very different ways depending on the situation. That's basically the trick Death Stranding pulls with Amelie and Bridget Strand. Bridget is mum in charge. She's grounded in the real world, dealing with politics, responsibility, and the messy consequences of being human. She's physically limited, aging, sick, and bound by time and space. Amelie, on the other hand, is Chili during playtime, emotionally present, practically ageless, and able to exist where the rules don't apply. She feels separate, freer, almost magical. The twist is that, just like Bluey eventually realized off-screen that Mum and her play-pretend alter ego aren't different people, Amelie and Bridget are the same being split across roles. Amelie isn't a sister or a daughter in the usual sense. She's the part of Bridget that exists outside the normal flow of the world. One body anchored to reality, one self untethered and symbolic. Now, pile on the idea that Bingo isn't Bluey's sister. Gasp! What if instead it turned out that Bingo was actually just the reincarnated soul of Chili, both Bingo and Chili the playmate? Seen this way, the reveal isn't about deception so much as perspective. To a child, Mum at work and Mum at play feel like 2 different people. To Sam, Bridget and Amelie feel separate because he meets them in different emotional and physical spaces. The truth lands when you realize they've always been one person, just wearing different masks for different needs. The foundation's been laid in clever and not so clever ways for you to figure this out before the big reveal. Both have brown fur, they look a lot alike. I think I've lost the metaphor. Is this helping? Yeah, maybe I'm overcomplicating it. Let's jump back to that interview Hideo Kojima gave The Face. In it, he said, Japanese thinking holds that when you die, you cross a river and it's split between heaven or hell. In Death Stranding, I wanted to combine Eastern thinking with Western ideas. I wanted to mix ideas of the afterlife and make it something anybody from any culture could understand. I wanted to draw the border between life and death along the beach, and when you die, you go back into the ocean. I've already flagged how the entwined souls of a baby and its mother can be traced back to Japanese culture, but the dominant theology in Death Stranding comes from Egypt. References and imagery are everywhere. When a body necrotizes, a golden death mask is formed on their corpse. Higgs' whole design references pharaohs. The art book returns to that aesthetic at every given chance, and numerous characters talk about the afterlife through the lens of Egyptology. The spiritualist claims that the Egyptians had it right all along. The Book of the Dead describes in detail how the soul leaves the physical body after death and then serves as a kind of guide for spirits looking to find their way to the afterlife. She reasons that that's what BTs are trying to do. Egyptians believed that the soul, that all-important sense of self, resided in the heart, not the brain like Leonardo da Vinci later claimed. In the world of Death Stranding, perhaps that's true. Hartman points us to still mothers. The heart, the womb, the umbilicus. Their brains are dead, but their spiritual connection to their child remains. I've used the words body and soul throughout this video to keep things clean, but Death Stranding has very particular reinforced terminology for those things. The Ha is the physical body and the Ka is the soul. When you die, your Ka moves on, leaving your Ha behind. Bridget and Amelie are 2 parts of one being. Bridget, the Ha, got cancer, and when she underwent surgery, her Ka, Amelie, was blasted onto the beach. Both were aware of each other, working closely across realities to unravel the truth about their role as an extinction entity. Bridges, BBs, the chiral network, they were all a means of learning more. Then, Bridget died and Amelie had an epiphany. Extinction might be the way to stop annihilation. With the big 5, life always found a way. Extinction became an opportunity to evolve, ready for the next one and the one after that. A plan formed. Trick Sam, get it all over with, fulfill her purpose so she doesn't need to be alone anymore. Sam was adopted. His whole life he's only ever known Amelie when he visited her here on the beach. A complicated and convoluted lie was told to him, a lie that I skirted over here but dominates a lot of the game's mystery. The claim was that Amelie was his sister, but she was stuck on the beach due to, let's call it Dooms-related complications. It shouldn't be that big a pill to swallow. After all, our time with Mama taught us that Haas can live and breathe even if their Ka has left them. But here's a question. How does that work exactly? A body without a soul is just a meat puppet, right? How was Bridget able to think and move and plan and dream? The answer lies in Egypt's grief infrastructure, in the rules that it laid out all those years ago. Rules, unfortunately, that Death Stranding doesn't acknowledge. See, it's more complicated than just a Ha and a Ka. There's also the Ib, the heart, where a person's personality and spirit lived. The Ren, your name. It's one of the things that makes Kojima's naming convention so interesting in this context. Characters go by many names, the name they were born with and the name that they're known as. Egyptians believed that if your name was lost, you were no longer a distinct person and would cease to exist. Bridget and Amelie are two names, describing two halves of the same person. It's interesting that Deadman notes Lou is turning into a person right after Sam names her. Then there's the Ba, the effect you have on the world around you, your reputation. Sam's Ba, for example, is the man who delivers, but that's just a small part of who he is. The Ka is not the total sum of your spiritual self. Instead, it's your life force, your essence, the vital spark. We understand that just like ancient Egyptians believed, death is a gradual process in this game. A dimmer switch, not a flick switch. In Death Stranding's world, the Ka separates after death, but who's to say that your Ha, Ren, Ib, or Ba doesn't stay behind? And if you can cling to them, the way that Bridget clung to them, you can keep going.
A gun won't help you here. But it still has a role to play.
With Amelie's revelation complete, Sam grips the gun she gave him tight. Endgame fake-out after endgame fake-out, bolted onto lore dump after lore dump, makes this an exhausting chapter. You can't just sit his ass down and let Amelie's monologue play out. There's no 70-minute cutscene here. You have to keep moving up and down the beach. It forces us to engage physically with the game in the hope that we'll engage mentally with what she's saying. It's as close as the game could ever come to replicating the months Sam spends here, losing hope that anyone will ever rescue him. Dying on the beach means you die for good. Would that be so bad after such a long journey? In the end, Lou is the one who saves him. Die Hardman's revolver was a stick that became a rope, a lifeline that helped Fragile, Deadman, and Lou find Sam's beach and reach him. Would that have worked if Lou and Sam's connection wasn't as strong as it is? The game never tells us, but I like to think not. The ending is built on a series of confessions. Let's start with mine. I don't like remembering your birth. Your mum was in labour for 44 hours and the contractions were never ending. When the time finally came for you to arrive, she was excited for an epidural, but we didn't get that far. The midwives said you were too sleepy. In the span of 30 seconds, a team of surgeons burst into the ward and whisked your mum away for a C-section. I didn't get a chance to tell her I love her, and that ate me alive as I waited for you. When I was finally allowed in the room and you were born, you didn't cry. Your mother couldn't see past the curtain, but I could. You weren't moving. Knowing that she would panic, I lied and said you were just surprised, but as I babbled something stupid trying to be reassuring, the room started to spin as the surgeons performed CPR. When you cried for the first time and started shooting angry looks at the doctors, I struggled to believe it was real, and the next day, my worst fears were confirmed. In the middle of the night, the nurses took you away and placed you in the neonatal intensive care unit. It's a testament to the power of acronyms because everyone called it NICU, a cute-sounding word for the most depressing place I have ever seen. It's supposed to be where babies get better, but it sounds like death. Silent, except for the shrieking, terrifying alarms that occasionally pop off from machines, telling a nurse or doctor that something is wrong. The lighting's dim, there's not much to see except for rows of babies in incubators. When you visit, you're surrounded by terrified parents trying to keep calm or hospital staff who are forcing a smile, despite the fact it's a statistical certainty that their job means that they've had to see a dead child at some point in their career. You were there for 10 days. Your mother was too sore from surgery, so she couldn't visit you until the 7th. I was split between keeping her company and not wanting to leave you. You looked like a porcelain doll. I brought a copy of Peter Pan. Reading to you was something I'd been looking forward to since I learned I was going to be a dad. I was worried I wouldn't get another chance. When, eventually, you got the all clear and we were told we could go home, I wrote all of that down so there was a record of it somewhere. Even now, recording this, it feels like it's someone else's story, because the person who wakes me up every morning doesn't feel like the same person that seems so small and fragile in an intensive care unit. I'm ashamed that on quiet days, I will that memory away. Maybe that's why I see a lot of myself in Death Stranding's characters. A lot of them are racked by shame.
Time didn't help. Or the mask. Please, let me finish.
Some time has passed since Sam returned from the beach. The United Cities of America is formally established. Die Hardman is now the president. The lie that Bridget and Amelie were mother and daughter remains. He doesn't share the truth. This is partly because even in the new world, the governing bodies we create are inherently flawed. You do the best you can despite that. But it's also because, well, where would you even begin to explain this stuff? There's still mysteries to solve though. The first is Die Hardman's sketchiness. He's been keeping secrets all game. How much did he truly know about Bridget's scheming? About the BB project? He's not interested in talking about any of that. What's been weighing on him is that he's responsible for the death of Clifford Unger. Bridget ordered him to do it, but Cliff was his commanding officer. They served together. He saved his life numerous times. He is the reason people use the title Die Hardman. Cliff pulled him out of hell time and time again. He owed the man his life, and he killed him. Tommy Earl Jenkins acts his butt off here, working hard to sell a scene that on paper has no emotional resonance with a first-time player. Why is he telling Sam this? Why does it matter? The truth lies in a twist that's revealed an hour after this confession. Clifford Unger was Sam's father. Oh, you might say, well, you're supposed to have figured that out by this point. That is potentially true. If you're paying attention and pushing past all the Kojimisms, you might figure that out. But the game has been working overtime to make you think Cliff was Lou's father, not Sam's. At this point in the story, that's what Sam believes, so he is as baffled by the confession as we are. If we're supposed to know Cliff and Sam's relationship by this point, why does the game take 30 minutes to unambiguously lay it out in a passionate, heartbreaking reveal quite a bit after this scene? Die Hardman suffers as a character because he's the man who gives the orders. He doesn't get an origin story until this 11th hour reveal. He delivers the retcons and the lies from terminals, so it means we don't have much of a connection to him other than Bridges personified. The more we learn about Bridges, the more we keep him at a distance. By the end of the game, we're supposed to see him as an ethical leader who will lead America into a new dawn free of Bridget Strand's lies. After all, he wasn't comfortable with the BB experiments. But we don't know that yet, so it makes this confession and his role as the new US president ring kinda hollow. Not least because we soon learn he isn't really responsible for Cliff's death. Bridget is. His emotion is a gushing faucet, the result of a man who, for years, kept the secrets of a woman he loved, even when she forced him to make terrible choices. Hardman says he's responsible, Tommy Earl Jenkins sells the feeling that he's responsible, but actions are what make a person, not words. When push came to shove, Die Hardman's actions were what mattered when Cliff died. He did what we all should. What he can. He's bottled up his emotions so fiercely that it's rewritten his memories. We'll soon learn that he actually tried to help Cliff. In fact, he tried to save his life. He's a testament to the importance of sharing how you truly feel before it's too late and doing a little good when you can, even if it blows up in your face.
Want to come work for me? Could use a man like you.
The world's still broken. Same as before.
Fragile has a confession of her own. Back on the beach, when she had Higgs in her grasp, she didn't shoot him. Couldn't bring herself to do it. Instead, she let him choose. Death or eternity on the beach. He chose the latter. Sam doesn't question it. He always believed it was her decision to make, and besides, he has other things on his mind. One last delivery. one last order from Bridges. Like other BB units before her, Lou has died, a lifespan of 1 year maximum, remember? Deadman, as if trying to convince himself, tells us that she was never alive, not really, not in this world. It's a dull reminder of the early chapters of the game. Necrosis is still a possibility. We need to carry her to the incinerator just like we carried Bridget. There's something Deadman wants us to remember though. We could take Lou out of the pod and try to resuscitate her, but that would be in direct violation of Bridges' laws, and we have just united a nation. Just to be safe, he deactivates our cufflinks so the UCA can't track us, hoping Sam will make the right decision. No cargo menu, no gear, no vehicles. Just Sam, his baby, and a gorgeous orchestral version of BB's theme. Ludwig Forsell, the game's composer, takes Clifford Unger's lullaby and makes it a powerful, haunting piece that hints at tragedy while turning toward hope. Jenny Plant, the vocalist on the song, told Eurogamer, "It's an amazing song to perform, dynamically starting off in that soft, gentle, I will hold you. That opening line is so powerful, and then coming up to the big climax moments. It's amazing. Being a mum now myself, singing this song has got that lovely connection as well, so when I perform it, it always feels extra special. Do you need to be a parent to feel the devastation in the song's chorus? I don't think so. It broke me in 2019 and now 7 years later with you sleeping in the next room, it's broken me again. The creator's past informs the feeling of the present. Hideo Kojima wouldn't kill a kid, right? You might wonder as you climb over the ridge to the incinerator. Something's about to happen. But then, you remember Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes. You remember how he put a bomb in a woman's womb. You remember the brutality of Mama's story, and you remember how often this game has crossed that line. Hideo Kojima is the womb bomb man. There's no knowing what he'll do. Did I mention the womb bomb? Why does Lou not work for Igor at the start of the game? Bridges treated it like a mystery, but the answer was always simple. Bridge babies aren't tools or machines. They're humans. Imperfect, flawed, faulty. Machines can be all of these things too, but not in Death Stranding. Not in a game that portrays technology this slick. I thought about that when I reached the incinerator in 2019, as I was forced to select the cremation option to progress the story, as the game awarded me a fucking S ranking because the cargo wasn't harmed, Bridges clapping me on the back for incinerating Lou, a very game-specific moment that wouldn't be as powerful without the interactive nature of the medium. And just when I thought I couldn't see this through, a flash. A ferocious, heart-wrenching goodbye for a man previously misunderstood. Clifford Unger has his own confession.
When I found out I was gonna be a father, I was so scared.
Cliff's story has been drip-fed to us at the beginning of each delivery. Whenever Sam connects to Lou, we get another piece of the puzzle, a tale that took place at the dawn of our newborn Earth. However, it's been told out of order and through the blurry, washed-out eyes of a bridge baby. Now, here it is. The tragedy of Clifford Unger, the man who was scared of becoming a father. Bridget Strand lied to Cliff. She told him that his wife's still mother status meant they wanted to check her into a secure facility to avoid a void-out. She told him that Bridges was trying to find a way to safely bring his baby to life without needing its mother. As time passed, Cliff soon realized that this was all a ruse. They were experimenting on his family to build the foundation of the chiral network. They weren't trying to save anyone. Die Hardman was the one who clued him in. The pair planned an escape, but it went horribly wrong. Cliff didn't get far. Soldiers shot him as he tried desperately to protect the BB pod. Die Hardman managed to intervene, tried to buy Cliff time, and the facility fell into a scrambling mess. Bleeding out, he retreated to his wife's bedside. If he was going to die, he was going to be with her and his son when it happened. Bridget led the breach into the medical room, and when she raised a gun to kill him, Cliff had a revelation. He saw Sam, fully grown. The man who delivers. Two men, bonded by fatherhood beyond death. Sam never realized it, but he's just like his father. They both struggle with their emotions, but they're both able to give in to the goofy when it's just them and their family. His gameplay role might be that of a haunting spectre, but Cliff is defined by tenderness. His scenes are some of the warmest in the game. He talks, sings, and dreams aloud about the future. This is not a man who sees his child as an extension of himself or a legacy to control. He sees Sam as a person, someone whose life matters beyond systems, experiments, or national interests. At the risk of indulging myself, but come on son, you saw the length of this video, I want to tell you about one of my favorite scenes. It's Christmas. Cliff enters with a Santa hat and a cheerful ho ho ho. He's brought his wife Lisa a gift, trying his best to keep up a family dynamic despite the setting being so grossly clinical. A beanie for the missus and a spaceman for baby Sam. One day, they'll see the stars together. Suddenly, Cliff pulls a gun into frame. That warmth evaporates. He stares at the gun for a beat before blinking away any temptation. "Won't be needing this anymore," he says. "I'm done fighting. You're all that matters to me now, so I'm going to stay right here with you." That gun will pass from person to person as the years go on, eventually becoming the weapon Amelie gives Sam on the beach. It was also the gun that ultimately killed Cliff. In his dying moments, he tried to rise to his feet, and even though he posed no threat, Bridget shot him twice. One of the bullets went straight through and pierced baby Sam. Cliff had taken him out of the pod, putting his faith in something unseen that Sam would take his first breath before Bridges could turn him into a tool. Sam's car went to the beach. Amelie found him, healed the bullet wound in his stomach, and sent him back to the physical world as a repatriate. With Cliff dead, Bridget decided to raise Sam as her son and never told him the truth. In Death Stranding, where children are routinely reduced to equipment, Cliff's refusal to emotionally distance himself is radical. When he realizes who Sam is and what became of his child, his rage dissolves. There's no demand for repayment for the time lost, no attempt to rewrite the past. There's only acceptance. He represents a form of fatherhood rooted in moral clarity rather than stability. He knows what's right, even when the world tells him it's impossible or impractical. His refusal to compromise on his child's humanity is what makes him dangerous to the system and, ultimately, a hero. Years later, Sam will embody that moral clarity.
Ew.
Sam is his father's son. Both defy a whole nation for the sake of a child. Deadman told us that there are laws against releasing a BB from a pod, but Sam doesn't care about that. We watch, agonizingly, as he tries to wake her up. The room starts to spin as he performs CPR, and when it finally works, when she cries for the first time, he struggles to believe that it's real. She looks like a porcelain doll. I've made a point of calling Lou she in this video, but that information is relegated to the post-credits stinger. Lou is a gender-neutral term, eventually confirmed to be Louise. There are a couple of reasons why that's clever, the first being a way to make us think Cliff is talking about Lou when he refers to his son. But the other is it makes imprinting on Sam and Lou incredibly easy if you're like me and your baby is a boy. For the record, who you are now and who you eventually decide to be are two different things. Christ, if Death Stranding's about anything, it's about how people change and how nobody is a slave to their upbringing. Higgs, Fragile, and Sam each embody a lesson there. But no matter who you choose to be, you are always going to be that baby that shot angry looks at the doctors, and for Sam, Lou is always going to be that kid that burped heart-shaped bubbles. Death Stranding toys with gender roles because Sam isn't just one parent, he is the parent. It's the story of a man who carries a child to term despite all the odds and in spite of systems set up to rob Lou of a chance at life. Again, it is inferred that months have passed since we first set out. A heavy load is strapped to his middle. The gunshot wound that Amelie healed looks like scarring from major surgery. It's far larger and more intrusive than a cesarean scar for the sake of on-the-nose imagery, but the symbolism still holds, and it's still powerful. By the time you're old enough to understand any of this, Death Stranding will probably look ancient. Its menus will feel clumsy, its systems obtuse. There might even be a remake that sands down its rough edges and explains itself more clearly. I hope you never play that version. Death Stranding isn't special in spite of its messy bits, it's special because of them. It's a game obsessed with failure, with people who make the wrong choice for the right reason or the right choice too late. It's a story about rebuilding the world when you don't fully understand how it broke in the first place, about carrying things that were never meant to be carried alone. It's also a game terrified of endings. Every time it feels like it's about to conclude, it finds another truth that was buried, another confession that needs to be dragged into the light, another apology that can't fix what was done but still needs to be spoken. It refuses the comfort advocate of clean resolution because clean resolution is a lie. The world doesn't heal like that, and people don't either. That's the part I didn't understand in 2019. Back then, I saw Death Stranding as a hopeful game about connection, a strange, awkward miracle that became accidentally prophetic a few months later. I admired it, I devoured it, I cried at it, and I put it away. Coming back to it now as your dad, I see something else running underneath all of it. Fear. Fear of inheriting a broken world. Fear of loving someone so completely that the thought of losing them rewrites your entire understanding of time. Fear of being responsible for a life when you still feel like you're working on your own. But here's the thing that Death Stranding understands, even when it stumbles over itself trying to say it. Fear doesn't disqualify you from doing the right thing. It's part of it. Every single emotion a parent has comes from a place of love, especially fear. I don't like remembering your birth because it was the first time I understood how little control I actually have. How quickly joy can turn into terror. How thin the line is between the life I have now and the one I very nearly didn't. I bury it, but buried things don't stay buried for long. It mattered because it changed me, because it's the moment I stopped thinking of the future as something abstract and started thinking of it as you. There are a bunch of other voices in this video that feel the same way. Death Stranding is a game about that shift, about choosing to believe that carrying something fragile through a hostile world is worth the pain it causes, about rejecting systems that tell you a life is expendable because it's inconvenient, about disobeying laws written by people who will never have to live with the consequences. The world that you're growing into will ask you to optimize yourself, to measure your value in outputs, to stay numb, to accept that some things are just the way they are. It will reward you for compliance and call it maturity. Don't listen to it. It might hurt, it might break the rules, it might not fix everything, but it will be yours.
We walked that season of gold. I'd walk it again. Clouded moments, hazy pictures in my mind.
Throughout this video, I featured other parents and the advice they'd like to pass on to their kids. Some are silly, some are sarcastic, some are serious, but all of them are earnest in the same way that Death Stranding is. So, here's my addition. Tip number 10. When Sam saves Lou, we see the souls of children that were incinerated by bridges. A reminder of the countless victims that lay the path. In the face of horror and hardship and fear like that, do what you can. Help those you can. Put a little good into your world and hope that it ripples out. You are my hope. Love, Dad.
I've seen this moment before. Can I go there again with you? Reminisce of where time stands still. Season of gold. I'd walk it again with you. Clouded moments, hazy pictures in my mind. And as the last call. I do it all again with you. Distant memories, or just